It's time to rock, folks. Welcome to the channel. Welcome to a special episode on the channel. It's always a pleasure, guys, when we can welcome Chris Gill back on the channel, especially when he's talking about something that's so passionate, so deep to your heart, Chris, then absolutely. EVH, brother.
EVH. This, it kind of ties in so much of my history with that. So it's a cool thing to see it come to light, and I hope people pick up on it and appreciate it for what it is, because it's a cool thing. It was an integral part of his sound for most of the years that most of us saw him on stage.
Well, we're certainly lucky and privileged and fortunate, everybody, to have Chris on the channel to talk about this wonderful pedal and this wonderful effect. We're also lucky, folks, to have on the channel two great guys, brothers of the channel, of the show. We've got Les Paul down there holding us up, and we've got Top Jimmy holding us up. These guys are going to be integral to this show, folks, because they've got the pedal. They've had the pedal for a while. On the channel, we don't talk about pedals that we don't know. We actually have the pedals, don't we, Les Paul? And get guys that have used them on to talk about them.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a great pedal. It's like me and Jimmy kind of got ours really close right when they came out, and we're kind of lucky because I know a lot of people are waiting for theirs, which is cool. I love it. I had the delays and the rack mount delays original, but the pedal's really cool. I love it. It's,
awesome.
Sounds great.
There it is there. Oh, hold your one up, Chris. Hold it up. There it is there. So look, what we're going to do, folks, on this show. Trust me, I'm doing all my talking now at the start, but I just want folks to know what we're going to do. Chris has got a dinner date soon, so he's going to do all the talking. He's going to tell us the history and everything. He's going to get some questions, obviously, from Les and Jimmy. If you guys have any questions for Les, Jimmy, and Chris as well, I'll do my best to put them up. But just bear this in mind. If Chris is talking, we won't interrupt him too much going left field and right field. So maybe Chris might come back in a couple of days and answer any of your questions in the comments, Chris, because we like to let people go and run with the topic. That's cool. No disrespect to you folks watching. Can I just do a quick shout out to the people in the chat? And I know that Jimmy wants to do, before I do that, a special shout out to somebody that's really important to what we do around here, Jimmy.
Yes. Well, Conks is in the chat. I think he said he's going to hop on after Chris is off, because he mentioned something about just wanting it to be, it's easier when it's just 4 guys and not 5. So I think he's going to hop on later.
Awesome. And thank you, bro, for doing that. So we're going to do a quick shout out at the start here, and then we'll get Jimmy to do a shout out to everybody at the end. So obviously we want to do a special shout out to Professor Gill Guitar. There he is there. He's joining us. Chris Gill, thank you, brother. Holly Lewis, thank you for sharing our links on your social media accounts. John Conklin is here. Jimmy V, Greg Roberts Tune, thank you, brother, for popping in. Michael, also a very good friend of the channel. Thanks, brother, for popping in. KXM Rock is in the chat. Thank you, brother. Who else is here? Dad Halen, all the way from Italy, is in the chat. Good to see you, brother. Thank you for hanging out with us. Fruitcake Tony, another good friend of the channel. Lewis and Fairfield Guitar Co.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you guys took your whiskey home, apparently, bro. You were saying.
Yeah, we shut that place down.
Oh, you guys shut the place down. Okay, fantastic. And another very good friend of the channel, Jimmy Ray Hawkins, Robert Ramford's in the chat. You guys are awesome. Thanks for hanging out. I'm going to let you go for it, Chris.
Cool. Well, let's start back at the beginning, I guess. I mean, the 3000, what an amazing unit. Crazy, short-lived, really awesome. One of the first products that, the legendary Yoshi Ikegami, who became president of Boss eventually, worked on. 1983, it came out. And it was just one of those state-of-the-art things. I mean, you didn't have much in the way of digital delay back then. It was like, you had a few things, but they were kind of primitive or they were super expensive. And, the Roland unit wasn't cheap. It retailed for $1,099, which, to give you an idea, I bought my first polyphonic synth, a Roland JX3P. In fact, I saw it at the same clinic show in San Diego. With Mark Altacruz was showing it off with the Roland guitar synth and everything as well, and a bunch of other cool Roland products like they used to do, and I guess they still do. But I got my JX3P for $1,299. So it was only $200 more than just a delay unit. So It was outrageously expensive, but it was state of the art. 8 presets, 8 memory locations in it. But the sound quality was just something else. And it caught on. It took a little while, but I know that Bob Bradshaw in particular was a huge fan of it and probably a big reason for its success. He was putting it in racks for all the studio guys in LA, Lukather, Landau, Dan Huff, a bunch of those guys. Pretty much all the studio guys in LA, you had a 3000 in your rack, or you had 2 of them. Because that's what he was doing, was putting together stereo rigs with 2 of them. So that, it was going along fine. Now, the problem with it is that the 3000 came out just on the cusp of the introduction of MIDI. In fact, my JX3P, which came out about the same time, was the first Roland product with actual MIDI built into it. And that was the future. And the 3000 didn't have MIDI. So it was already old hat kind of out of the gate. I mean, technologically inside it sounded great and everything like that, but it just was lacking the communication protocol that everyone was starting to go crazy about, and was making all these crazy complex rigs work, and then you could have a rack full of all these things and call up all these different presets and what have you. So Roland discontinued it pretty quickly, 1985. And that left a lot of people in the lurch. The replacement they came out with was the SDE 2500. And it was, it had 64 memory locations. That was great. It had MIDI. That was great. But the delay time was not as long. The maximum delay time, I think, was only like 1,000 milliseconds compared to, you could get up to 4,500 milliseconds out of the 3000. So that kind of was dead in the water, and it didn't sound as good either. And that was one of the key things about like Yoshi working on the 3000, was that he was a guitarist himself. So a big part of the design was, how good does this thing sound with guitar? And I think he was coming, of course, from the Roland Space Echo and Echoplexes and all that other stuff background, and trying to get a bit of that body and that warmth, and the feedback, those in the decay that was just lush, and that's the thing about the 3000, is just, it sounds incredible with guitar. And as soon as we discontinued it, I wasn't working for Roland yet. I ended up working for Roland in 87. But by that point, the 3000 had been gone for 2 years. And I started at the company doing catalogs and brochures for them. And every now and then I would fill in on the phones to do product support too. So to do tech support. And I was right next to all the pool of the tech guys anyway. So I was overhearing a lot of the phone conversations and stuff going on. And then I would get phone calls from time to time, and people would ask about, when are you going to bring back the 3000? When are you going to update it? When are you going to modify it? When are you going to do this? Got a lot of calls about that. Then later in '89, I was doing artist relations. I got promoted up to doing artist relations for the company. And boy, did I really hear it then. I got calls almost every week from Bradshaw. Can you find these for me? Can you scour your dealers out there and find these? I need them. These guys want them for backup. These guys going out on tour and everything, want them. And I started taking a tally down of these things, like all these people asking for the 3000. It's like, shit, it's like, I'm getting a lot of calls about this. Not just Bradshaw, but a bunch of other people were calling in, I would get probably about, 10 to 20 requests a week, which is unheard of for an, product that had been discontinued and had been gone by this point for 4 years.
Wow.
And you have MIDI, and I was just like amazed by it. And, pretty soon I had a pretty substantial list going. And at one NAMM show, I talked to Mr. Kakahashi and said, hey, me and the product specialists are just getting a ton of calls asking for the 3000. Will you guys ever bring it back? And he's like, no, impossible, and it was a very Japanese thing to say. Impossible usually meant like, yeah, we're working on it. I came to find out. So it was just, they always had a way, like no meant something else and yes meant no and whatever. It was kind of all this crazy, coded language that they used. But anyways, eventually he gave in, and we had, I think it was either late 90 or early 91 or thereabouts, they reissued it as the SDE 3000A. And still to this day, I see a bunch of people going like, what's the difference? Paint. It's basically some paint, maybe a few little random parts that couldn't quite match 100%, from the original supplier. But basically, okay, it's a 1-for-1 copy of the 3000. But Kakahashi was just really weird about reissuing products back then, and really even to this day, Roland still is like they do a new iteration of it, like we're seeing with this guy. They didn't just bring out the rack unit again. But he was really superstitious about it, and he also told me kind of candidly, like, Roland's motto is, we design the future.
Okay.
So we don't care about the past. The past is the past. We are about the future. Very stern about it and everything. And of course, he had product ideas that some stuff he told me about that I didn't see until 10 years down the road. So that's how far in advance they were working on things. Just so he really was, working on the future in the past when it came out. But anyways, so it came out, and that was great. And that actually led to my initial dealing with Ed. First time I ever dealt with Ed was 91 for the Unlawful Carnal Knowledge tour. And I don't remember if it was Ed himself or it might have been Scotty Ross called me over at Artist Relations and said, hey, we're going on tour and Ed needs backups for his 3000 units. And I heard you got these new 3000A units and what's the deal with them and everything like that. And I said, I'll just pack up a bunch and send them over to you. So Ed had a bunch of those. But to backtrack a little bit, and now bring Ed into the story and kind of why this is coming about. Ed loved the 3000 from the get-go. Again, Bradshaw turned him onto it in '85 for the rack that he put together for the 5150 album tour. And it basically found a permanent place in Ed's rack ever since. And initially, stereo rig, he had 2 units, one for each side. And he would use it as kind of a complement to like his Eventide spread. And he liked the sound. It was a reverb thing. It was a trick he learned from Don Landy, that delay actually sounds better and clearer and punchier and more powerful than using reverb. Reverb has a tendency to wash things out and make everything a little bit more mushy and less defined. And if you want to keep good definition and everything like that, use delay. That's an old, recording engineer and producer's trick. And I find it works like a charm. I rarely use reverb. I generally tend to use delays more than anything on that. Ed worked on it and refined it, and he came up with the wet, dry, wet setup. And I don't know if I think the Unlawful Carnal Knowledge tour was the first time that he used that, but I think he came up with it a little bit before in either 89 or 90 or whenever. But that was, again, it just stayed there. All these delay units came and went and pedals got smaller and shrunk and everything like that. But Ed just stuck with the 3000s because his ear just said, sounds the best to me. This for what I'm using them for. This sounds incredible. So he stuck with it. Now that I want to bring up something that was interesting about that he also used the Lexicon PCM 70. And a lot of people are like, well, why didn't he just use the PCM 70 for everything? Well, again, it was the sound. But the interesting thing was there was two reasons why he used the PCM 70. One, he used it for cathedral. And that's because, even though you can kind of link two SDE 3000s together, it's not really precise. There's always a little bit of off and phasing and whatever. And for cathedral, he needed the exact same delay on either side, so they had to match up perfectly. And that's something that the PCM 70 could do. The other thing is that the PCM 70 was a very easy way for him to take a mono signal and split it into stereo to go out to the separate SDE 3000 units, which were mono. So he can, get any type of stereo out of a 3000 by itself. So that was kind of a simple solution to that. But that was basically it. It was just the PCM 70 is kind of just stayed in his rack, for a couple sound effects and for doing cathedral. And then the 3000s did all the real heavy lifting. They were on almost constantly when he played live. There's only like a few times where he turned it off, like if he just needed extra punch or whatever, like if he was doing something with Debbie, it's kind of like a solo, like You Really Got Me, where it's just him on the guitar and just punching out chords and he just wants it to be super tight, but for the rest of the set, they were on. And usually just one setting, with one kind of a middle length delay and then a longer one, about twice as long on the other side, usually exactly twice as long, but sometimes not always. So sometimes he tweaked it a little bit. And as time went on, those delay times got longer and longer. So, Andrew, if you could bring up that, the first one, the 2012 rack, I just want to show that.
Right, give me a second, brother. I'll make sure I get the right one. Is it that one there?
No, that's 2015. Okay, that's the rack in 2012. And if you get the next one up, because you can see in the middle, that's where kind of all the delay units were, the backups and the let's see that one there. Okay, now there you can see there's like the two, pretty much in the center there. There's two SDE 3000s and then there's two PCM 70s below. And of course the bottom ones, and then there's two more SDE 3000s, including one of the 3000As on the very bottom there. That is one of the ones that I sent them. But basically the backups are on the bottom and then the main units are on the top. So, and then if you go to the next slide, which is kind of the low res looking thing.
All right, give me a second, brother.
Yep, there's the Women in Love preset. So that he used. So he did also use it for Women in Love. So that's when he did the tapped intro on that. So that was then those are basically the settings that he was using then for that.
Can folks read that? Left 360, 20, and is that a 40?
6 is 60.
A 60.
Yeah,
and
basically
right.
that's the output. So it had a higher output. Generally, when Ed used it for reverb, the output settings were actually really low. Like you could barely even hear them sometimes. But for that one, he needed more output, so it needed to be a little bit higher, because he wanted to get that bouncing echo effect, like that he had on that, like he did on the Echoplex initially. So cool. Now you can show the 2015 one. So, okay, that's 2012 again. There we go. And that's the last time I saw him on stage. That's the two units there, and then the PCM 70. You can see it really clear with the cathedral and everything. So, and I believe that the setting on that, if I remember right, was about 424 milliseconds. And that's basically was set to about 1.5, delays and feedback, and almost a 1-to-1, level match on that first delay, so that was, but that, again, that was pretty much all he used the PCM 74 was that. So anyways, that's, now the wet, dry, wet rig that Ed used. This issue of Guitar World, unfortunately, kind of, I was just talking today about art directors about, with Jeff Goebel about that, because this is a case of like, they let me go to the show all day, have unfettered access, go everywhere, take pictures of everything, go in front of the racks, behind the racks. everywhere. And the whole idea was to just give all the gory details of Ed's live rig, all the setups. We did kind of a dumbed down signal path rig there. And it showed the wet, dry, wet setup. And the key to the wet, dry, wet setup was Ed basically used a half stack. That was the core of his sound. So he had a 5153 head and a 4x12 cabinet, and that's the crux of Ed's live sound. Now, to do the wet, dry, wet thing, he had a tap coming out. Dave Friedman built a couple custom boxes, and there was a box that was connected to the speaker output. So the speaker output went to this box, and that converted it to line output. And then, of course, he also had it going, to the speaker as well. So he didn't need a load box in this case. But and I highly recommend getting one of these suckers, one of these SOAR reactive load. This one or the IR version with the IRs built into it. If you really want to, if you want to do it Ed style, get one of these, because it's basically does that exact same thing. It does, it takes from the amp, you go from the speaker output, and then you can actually go through to your speaker cabinet. So again, you can use the reactive load if you want and record direct, but it's a great box, and it works really, really well with the new unit, actually. I mean, the new unit's actually designed so you don't need that, but if you want to do it Ed style, I'd say get the SOAR. So, but anyways, Ed, he came out of that, and then the feed, the line level feed that came out of the box that came from the speaker output, the line level feed went into the PCM70. And then from the PCM70, stereo split went to separate SDE 3000 units. And basically what that did is it just fed the full amp, the preamp and the power amp of the 5153 had the signal of that got fed out into the delay units. And that's basically the crux of what's going on here in the pedal. And this is the really ingenious thing about it, because they figured out a way to do it without needing all those boxes and everything. And that's this is why you want this one and not the SDE 3000D. You've got this effects loop here, right there. Those two guys. And when I got it, I did the typical guitarist thing, and it's like I tried to set it up without reading the manual and thought I was doing it right, and boy, did I get it wrong and everything. And this is one box that you've got to read the manual. It's not, unfortunately, it's a typical Roland Japanese thing where it's not really written in the most clear English, unfortunately, and that's an age-old problem that we could never fix and never will. Unless maybe AI will do it. I don't even know. They'll probably mess it up even more, but it's just ingenious, because it basically does that. It basically feeds the amp, your amp head, into the delays.
Wow.
So, and you don't need to worry about reactive load or whatever. I mean, because basically you're plugging it into an amp or however it is. But it's just ingenious. I mean, it's really one of the smartest things. And for $600, you've got, when these SOAR units cost about $350, $400. So, and that doesn't give you all the delays, it doesn't give you 2 delay units and all this other stuff. So people complain about it. It's like, oh, it's expensive. It's like, it's actually really quite a bargain if you really are serious about doing a wet, dry, wet rig. And once you've heard that, once you've played that, I defy anyone to go back, because it sounds so incredible. It's, and especially when you're feeding a full amp head to the delays. You're not just, patching in a delay between the preamp and the power amp, but you're feeding a whole amp into the delays. It's quite a sound. And I was telling John, after I got the unit and played with it for a few days, John Conklin, I was telling him, it's like, this is the closest I've ever gotten to Ed's sound.
Wow.
After years and years of trying and chasing and doing this and doing that, this thing got me like just there. It's punchy. It's ballsy. You've got the articulation and everything like that, but you have that ambience, and it's just, everything sounds big. And I don't know what I'm doing wrong, because it's like, if I plug straight into my amp, or if I use this pedal in the effects loop, it's just not the same thing, but when you have it set up like this, it's like, wow, I think it's like, it's Ed's studio sound, basically. And that's why he did this live, was to get his studio sound, on stage. And it's just, you got this clarity, but then you have that ambience, and, it's just beautiful, beautiful, beautiful sound.
Well,
so, And now after my monologue, I mean, if you guys want to cut in with anything, I mean, that's kind of the crux of at least the history behind it. You know, and I mean, there's other details about Ed's rig, but just basically for the wet, dry, wet, that was really the, you know, the key to it really was that box made by Friedman, which was that speaker, you know, to line out converter. That was just really the big part of the magic, getting the whole up, feeding the delays.
Chris, it's funny. You said, you know, read the manual. When I got it, like I skimmed through the manual. I'm like, all right, cool, whatever. And I plugged it into, I was just running it first into my Kemper and then my 5150, just straight up effects loop. Then I was looking, there's, you know, you can alter the ins and outs, you know, and you can change stereo and mono. And you know, on the original units, you could do that. I'm like, well, this is kind of, I don't remember this on the original units, obviously. And then I was getting some, you know, going through the presets. That's the first thing I did, obviously, is go through 1, 2, 3, 4, then 5, 6, 7, 8, and checking it out. I'm like, all right, it sounds cool. And then I went stereo, and then eventually went wet, dry, wet. And now it's going to be hard to use a pedal back in even a mono. Even though I have a wet, dry, wet with the racks, maybe I'll have to put this into another setup or something. But one thing that's cool about it, which is also crazy about it and can be confusing, is the setup of it, because everybody's got different setups. Jimmy, me, you, but it'll work in any one of the setups. You just got to tweak it to what you're doing.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's the thing, read the manual, because, you know, there's stereo setups. There's a lot of different setups you can do. And like I said, I tried to do it just initially, the wet, dry, wet, and I got it completely wrong, you know, when I first did it. And even now I get confused. Like if I unplug it for a while and come and go to hook it back up, it's like, oh, wait a second, it goes this way, you know. But I was looking at the signal path and trying to figure out as best as I can. And as best as I can tell, it's feeding the whole amp. It's just an ingenious way without getting feedback going and everything like that. I mean, I think there's some type of mixing and stuff going on inside the pedal that we, you know, they aren't really letting on to. They're very secretive about a lot of stuff. I mean, I know I've talked with, you know, various people involved in the project and everything, which is another point I want to bring up. But you've really got to read the manual. And I will mention right off the top, comparing this, I'm not going to lift it because it's too heavy. I've got my rack here with my original SDE 3000 in it. And of course I A-B'd it. And I don't want to mention any names, but there's some other YouTube videos out there where people are like A-B'ing, and it's not a proper A-B by any means. They did not do the homework. They didn't dig in properly, because there's a couple things you need to do to make it. That's one great thing about this, is it does the 3000, but it goes beyond that too. And
Way beyond.
I'll just show really quickly because it gets a little confusing here. You've got like your setup button, and okay, that's you got your, if you go to the digital delay here, and then you can go in a little bit further, press setup again. Okay, and then we've got, what have we got here? I can't read out this stuff. Okay, this one is this is showing feedback here, and it says ORG. That's original. That's the original EQ on the feedback on your delays. So on your tails, that's the original EQ to match the SDE 3000, and they nailed it. I have gone through and compared it with my unit back and forth with the same settings, and had people change it around for me, and I can't tell the difference. And that was what happened with it. Was a really impressive team of people they had working on this. You know, they had Matt Brock, of course, you know, with EVH, who worked with Ed for decades. You had Pete Thorn there, you had Dave Friedman, you had Yoshi, you know, you had quite a few other people on it. Wolfgang was in and out on it. I know Ed was initially involved on it, but at that tail end of just making it tweak to sound exactly like, they got to the point where they were just going back and forth, and they could not tell the difference. And that's why it kind of pissed me off when I saw these ABs, because it's like, I always feel like, oh, the old one sounds warmer, blah, blah, blah. You know, it's like, oh, because these guys didn't set it up right. Because you can go and, you know, there's ORG there, and then it's like, okay, there's off, you know, so there's no EQ on it, which you can't do that on the original unit. It just does what it does because it's part of the bit processing and everything. There's original again, and then there's user. And if you get into user, you can go really tweak it. There you have low and high shelving separately that you can adjust. So it starts to shelve, you know, you can make it real narrow or real wide, and you can go wider than the original unit, because the original unit, you know, depending on what your delay time, went up to 8K, up to 8 kilohertz before it started to roll off. So one of these things that I heard, they had obviously I heard the presets, like, oh, I figured out what preset they used. And it's like, they use this one. And it's like, that has the user setting, and it has the very pushed out shelf. So it's really like 12K. So it sounds brighter, of course, because the EQ is different on it. Also the modulation section in here, but the one that I saw showed they had the modulation on, and the original unit only gave you a triangle wave. The new unit gives you a triangle wave, and it gives you a sine wave. And of course, the demo that they showed on the new one had sine wave. So differences, but it's good for us because, you know, you can get the original sounds, but you can do some new stuff with it too. So that's really cool. And of course, you can link them much more accurately. I mean, dead on accurately, which you couldn't do by using 2 individual units. You just couldn't really get the clocks to match up at all. So that's why I'd never used it for Cathedral, as I mentioned earlier. But it's really ingenious. They really did their work. It sounds like the 3000. It's just dead on. And you know, I've got to. If I had more time, I need to, you know, really set up my stuff. I really want to do a video where I just show people, like, look, this is how it is. It sounds exact, you know. And if you hear any differences, you're crazy. I mean, or you've got hearing way beyond what I can hear. But yeah, it's if you're skeptical about that aspect, rest assured it does. You just have to get in there and do it. And the EVH things all use the original SDE 3000 settings.
So I just want to jump in there and reiterate, folks, what Chris said there. You've got to fiddle with the pedal to get the sound, and you can nail it.
Yeah,
that's straight from Chris's mouth, folks.
Except for the EVH presets, which are all set to the original 3000 specs. The only problem is you don't know what the parameters are because they're proprietary and they're hidden. Hint, hint. Go back a few minutes. But anyways, but you want the 3000 EVH anyways because of the wet, dry, wet features. I mean, the 3000D is cool, but you can't do the wet, dry, wet with that unless you get yourself an expensive sewer box, you know. But hey, come on. It's got stripes on it, you know. Yeah. it's got the mojo. It's got the EVH button on it. It's got the EVH presets, you know. So
you had me at presets.
Yeah.
And not only that, but it also, the effects loop, you know, it has a noise suppressor in it. In my review that's in Guitar World, I kind of go through all the details of what's different about this unit and the D unit. You know, so there's actually, it's only $100 more than the D unit, but you get more than $100 worth of value.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
So, I mean, just the jacks alone, the built-in noise suppressor and the loop, you know, you get 3 ground lift cables for wet, dry, wet thing, which you will find you're going to need. Because you will inevitably, you know, even if it works fine at your house, you may be out using it at a gig and all of a sudden you're getting all this horrible noise. So you're going to need those ground lift cables. And where are you going to find those? You know, those aren't so readily available either. They're not easy to find. So that's already about, you know, $50 plus your time, you know, just for those 3 cables basically. So.
And you get MIDI, which you didn't have MIDI, you know, on the original. It has MIDI. You said you didn't have MIDI. And now I got a question. So, maybe you can answer this. So with me and Jimmy were kind of talking about this. So with the EVH presets, you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, whatnot. So the only thing you can control is just the output. I get that. Yeah, and you can actually tap tempo on the presets, which is kind of cool. Can you MIDI those EVH presets or no?
I haven't tried that yet, so I can't answer for sure.
I was just curious because that's the only thing I haven't tried with those. I've done the tap tempo and adjusted the outs, but I haven't MIDI'd it yet.
Yeah.
I don't see the need but
I wanted to see if you could, let's say you had it set to bank A, you know, A1, if you could send a message and have it go from A1 to EVH4 and then back again. I think that's what Les and I were trying to figure out, like if it would, I haven't tried it, but we were kind of thinking that it's kind of hardwired and it might not be MIDIable, where the other ones are, like the regular A and B banks. Right. You know, but maybe the EVH ones aren't MIDIable or whatever the word is, you know?
Yeah, I haven't dug into it, so I can't answer, you know, for sure about that. I mean, I've had it probably about as long as you guys did. I know I got it the first day that I know other people I saw some messages from people I know saying, I got mine, you know, and I got mine the same day, you know, and I actually got a preliminary unit. So, I mean, this is the worst thing about it. Just no reflection on the quality of the pedal whatsoever. It's just they sent it to me without the finished software, and I didn't know it at the time. So I'm like going, where's the level readout? You know, it's like, I mean, I can match levels by ear, but I really want to be precise here. And it's like, I mean, I had to go back to just using my ears, you know, imagine that. But then I should have. I went through all this stuff. I tried the factory reset and all this other stuff. And it's like, oh, software update. I thought it was so new that I thought they wouldn't have had the software update available already. But that's the first thing I contacted I'm trying to remember the guy over at Boss that I talked to, but he's just like, yeah, I just do this, and loaded it up and everything was just cool. But always recommend that anyways. Anytime you get a new pedal or anything like that, has a computer CPU in it, go online and download the latest system software, because you never know how long a box has been sitting around. I should have known better, because reviewing products all these years, that's always like one of the first things I do when I get something is like, update the system software and make sure that it's doing that. But for some reason I just thought, oh, this is so brand new. How could there be another version, But I had the old test version on there. But there was a few panicked moments between a few people that I contacted about that, because it made for some rather fun day. But
Chris, when did you get the? Did they send you a prototype and then they sent you like a released one, or did you? No,
they sent me basically. It was one of the first production units, but it wasn't quite. It was like for their initial testing before. It went out. They wanted to make sure that customers got the absolute, 100% production units and everything first. That's why mine had the old software on. Someone over at Boss really should have just taken it aside and plugged it into the USB and loaded it up in 5 minutes. But whatever. It was all cool. Yeah. But yeah, it's basically the same. It was one of the units that was like, wasn't a regular deal. But
yeah, I remember waking up that morning when it was released and I was like, oh man, what is this? And then I went to that video where they had it with like, I think, what was it? Who was there? Pete Thorn or somebody, and they had like the 3 rigs set up and I'm like, wow, this is going to be interesting. And then Les went ahead and pulled the trigger like 5 minutes later on one.
I bought it at 9:00.
Yeah. I was like all over it. I was just like, I was telling my, the powers that be. There's not really the powers, just the other guys in-house at Guitar World, because I'm out of house. I just said, I need this. We're doing this, and I'm getting it, and it's like, we need to do it. And I don't want to get too political, but the website, and even Wolfgang was going on today about some stuff about the website. And a lot of people aren't aware that the website and the magazine are really 2 different entities. We just share the same name. And it's a bit of a problem, and it's becoming more and more of a problem, because we've had some stuff with Howard Stern saying some stuff and whatever, and we're getting some flack about website stuff, and it's no reflection on the magazine whatsoever, but anyways, it's just, wanted to get it out there because I want it on the website before the British magazines do their review, because it's like, God damn it. I was there in the trenches with Ed, for years on this damn thing. And I just don't want to see anybody get it wrong. I want it, I want mine up on guitarworld.com. I don't know. They're probably going to do Total Guitars review or something like that. Who knows? It happens a billion times when, if I review something in Guitar World, it ends up that they put the British magazine review up on the website, but whatever, that's their deal. But I was really possessive with this one. Like, I'm passionate about this product. Like I said, it's really close and near and dear to my heart. It spans so much of my work career because, like I said, I worked at Roland, and that's where I first dealt with Ed, and it was on this product in particular. And then, of course, having seen, carte blanche to go see his rigs up close on tour and see how he used them and everything like that. And just knowing that how important those things were to his sound. And it's kind of like, people go on about the Wolfgang guitar, great. All the EVH products, wonderful, and they're all cool parts of that sound, but the 3000 also plays a bigger role than most people are aware, especially for the live stuff. And even, I'm sure in the studio, I probably played a role too over the years, through all the Sammy records and balance and everything. And, up through even, different kind of truth. But
very cool.
It's really what was I going to say? The team that worked on it, too. I know like how long they worked on this and how hard they worked on it, and the craziest thing is like when push came to shove, they were really when it really came to like, okay, we're moving full steam ahead on this thing. Yoshi retired, and like that just like. That threw Matt for a loop, and it was just like, oh my gosh, here we've made all this progress on it and everything. And now the key guy, like we're going into the finish line, and now he's leaving the company. And like, we need Yoshi to see this thing through to the end, you know. Unfortunately, he stayed on as a consultant. Just that's the one, the last thing he did. It's kind of an interesting full circle for Yoshi, because that's the first product he designed for Roland, and then it turns out to be the last product that he developed for Boss. So, really cool thing.
Chris, I had the. You might remember this, in I think in 93, 94, Roland had the SDE 330.
Right.
I had one of those. And it was it was more like a dynamic delay, if you remember.
Yes.
It was a real slick, almost kind of like a TC 2290s with a lot of presets, because, you know, and it just didn't sound the same as the SDEs. I'm like, I liked it for some things, but it just didn't have that warmness that the old Roland had.
Yeah. And that's Yoshi. I mean, that's, you know, Yoshi he put so much of his own particular taste as a guitar player into the 3000, and that's what was missing. You know, Roland had huge teams of engineers. We used to have, I never got to go over to Japan when I worked for Roland, you know, to go visit with them, but they used to come, you know, en masse to the NAMM show. And after every January NAMM in Anaheim, we would have a big meeting, which I always look forward to. It was kind of like you're, you know, sitting on Santa's lap kind of deal. So there'd be like about 50 guys and Japanese guys in black suits and ties, you know, like looked like the Men in Black, basically, all sitting around. And we had this room, the conference room that we had for the for dealer meetings and for showing off product and things like that. That was at the offices, and we had this big square table, and so there was a big square of guys, and we would file in and we would give them our wish list of what products do we want, you know, Roland and Boss to come up with. And for me, you know, 3 of those products came to life. One was the, I think it was the FW3 wah pedal, which had a sweepable mid filter on it. It was a failed product. It didn't do very well. I think it was ahead of its time. And just, it was one of those things that, you know, if you were to listen to it now, you'd probably get it. But back in the early 90s, people were kind of like, yeah, you know, because everybody just wanted the original Crybabies and Voxes back then. And it wasn't that. It was something unto itself. The other thing was the PN2. I asked for a tremolo pedal. I bought a Demeter tremulator and gave it to one of the guys over there. And I said, you know, I want something like this, or I want something like a Fender amp type of tremolo or whatever. And they came up with instead this kind of just a simple, you know, panning thing, but it still worked and it sounds cool. And it was another pedal that was basically a bomb when it came out and kind of became a real hip item after the fact.
I still hope you have that Demeter pedal.
Yeah.
Jim Demeter makes some great stuff.
Great stuff. Well, that was the only, at that point, that was the only tremolo pedal on the market. That was the only one. You know, you're talking about 89, 90. There weren't tremolo pedals. Now everybody makes a tremolo pedal, but back then nobody did it, you know. And, the other thing was the Boss Metal Zone. So I wanted a pedal that was basically Metallica's Master of Puppets in a box. I bought a CD of Master of Puppets. I gave it to the guys and said, like, I want a pedal, you know, with mid-range, parametric mid-range that could cover at least a range of 800 hertz to 3 kilohertz, you know, and something to tighten the bass up. And, you know, basically, you know, I didn't come up with the actual, I came up with a basic concept of wish list, but they did all the hard work on it, you know, but basically the only thing I wanted was parametric mids, because I knew something was going on. I had a Mesa Boogie myself and I couldn't get that sound with just my Mesa Boogie. Of course, come to find out later, it was these Aphex, you know, it was like the Aphex parametric EQ, I think EQ2 or whatever it was called, and the noise gate that they had, which I finally found those. Now I get those sounds, you know, yay, you know. But it was a big secret back then how they got that stuff. I mean, it's a little sidebar, but it's like Fleming Rasmussen has put all those EQ settings online, and man, is it just, it's a fun way to spend your time is going through all his notes for those records, you know, Injustice for All and Master of Puppets, and just going through all those Aphex EQ settings, man. It's just it was such a revelation to get that. But anyways, back to you know, the team. I mean, they really worked so hard on it, and it just, you know, it's more effort than the average Boss or Roland pedal out there rolling product. I mean, they put a lot of effort into stuff that they do. They do a lot of really good work, but man, this pedal in particular was just really a labor of love for so many people involved. You know, especially the Van Halen crew, you know, Wolf and Matt Bruck and, you know, Pete Thorne and Dave Friedman and all those people.
You know, it's really, you know, speaking of like the hard work, I mean, I'm impressed where like it's simple as what you want to use it for. Like you can just use the presets and say, I just want it for this, and it works out great. And you're not going to beat that sound. But one thing that's really cool is you can really get as deep as you beyond want to with MIDI. I started using mine with the foot controller.
Yeah.
I started using another pedal into it with a foot controller and just kind of going kind of crazy. And the thing's, it's nuts. How deep you can get into the pedal.
And that's the thing. A lot of people go like, "Oh, it's a delay pedal." And it's like, it's not just a delay pedal, but it's a
delay tool.
It's a delay tool, and it's a professional, and it's, you know, it's a bit specialized. It's not a Strymon timeline. It's not a jack of all trades type of pedal. It does what it does, and it does it exceptionally well. You know, and it's like, hey, I love the Strymon stuff. I love my El Capistan. I love my timeline, but it doesn't have that magic of a 3000 to it. You know, just there's stuff, especially when you're recording stuff and you're listening to stuff with the microscope. You just those tails, the quality of those tails, that's why these things are still coveted after all these years. I mean, it's why people still love echoplexes and space echoes. You know, there's just a certain quality with it. And digital emulations are great, and they get really super close, and they're getting better all the time. But sometimes there's just something magical about the original unit, you know. And in this case, this is the original. I mean, it's from the same DNA, and it's been really, really tweaked, you know. And this wasn't like, okay, we need to come up with 25 different delay algorithms. This was just like, let's look at this through a microscope and really get this thing right. And it really shows.
Hey, Chris, I got a small question. The original SCE, was it 8-bit or 12-bit?
It was 12-bit.
I thought it was 12, yeah.
And it's kind of weird because I was writing up a history of it here just recently even, and it's kind of like it's 12-bit, but they say companded to 16-bit, but it's 12-bit. I mean, yeah. You know, the companding thing, that was jargon stuff that we used to kind of, I wasn't there. I didn't write that brochure, but that's the type of stuff we would use to kind of, you know, hype stuff up and make it seem better, you know, for the spec heads out there. I mean, when it comes right down to it, it's really a matter of what just sounds good. You know, and even at 12-bit, it still sounds incredible. But it's interesting because it's like it's got a bit of grit to it, but it's not a granular grit. It's kind of it's smooth. It's like it's polished stones. It's not like a bunch of jagged rocks. You know, I guess that's probably the you know most artistic way I can describe it.
Well, it's definitely analog. You know, it just sounds like a great analog, and it works great, like you said, with clean, dirty single coils, humbuckers. I've used it with a ton of gain. I've used it with Vox amps.
And it sounds good with a ton of gain too. That's the other thing. And then you can push the input hard. I mean, Pete Thorns' video is a good example of that. And watch Pete Thorns, you know, just his individual thing. He did a great job kind of giving a run through of how it sounds and what you can do with it. It's highly recommended if you get it. Watch that video because he does a good job running through what it can do. But yeah, it's just it is. I mean, there's so much. You were talking about the foot pedals. I mean, that's the original unit. Actually, I kind of forgot about because it's one of these things that just sometimes I was so cheap back then. I didn't have much money, you know, so I didn't get the foot switches and stuff. But it has tap tempo. The original has tap tempo in it. You know, it has a way to like adjust, you know, to do looping on it. It was just so ahead of its time. You know, it was primitive, but you still could do looping on it. You know, it was a really, really cool, ingenious product. And it was worth it. You know, it was an instrument to itself, so it was worth the $1,100 that they were asking for it back then.
Wow. Mm-hmm. I have the foot switch for the original unit, and it's like a little square, like a keyboard pedal. And it just changes to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Keeps looping back. Yeah, it's pretty funny.
That's it. So it's just
not MIDI. So MIDI basically, I guess, kind of. Like you said, kind of, I guess, hurt the original unit because it just wasn't MIDI, and they needed something, I guess, that was. Because I never owned the SDE 2500, so I was unfamiliar with like the settings or the times or MIDI. I didn't know if it was MIDI or not.
Yeah, 2500 was a replacement for it, but it was one of those things that, sometimes the new and improved product was not, it was like one step forward and a couple steps backwards, and that was definitely the case with the 2500. It was almost instantly just spurned. It was a failure. People just like, it doesn't sound as good. Yeah, it's got MIDI. Yeah, it's got 64 presets, none of which I'll use. It's got less delay time on it, but those are compromises that had to be made with the processors that you had at the time. You can only do so much with them. So, and that's with the 3000, and that's a point I did want to bring up too. People bring up often about the Boss DD2 pedal having the same long chip in it. It's like, well, yes, it has the same chip, but you look at the 3000. Okay, it's packed with components. Inside of its rack space, it's it's deep too, and it's covered with components. You're not fitting that into a little Boss pedal. And the big difference is, that really in the sound quality, it sounds good. The DD2 is a great pedal, sounds great, but you don't have those filters on the analog to digital and the digital to analog. And that's really where a lot of the magic lies in the 3000, is in the filters. So, and how it's converting the digital into analog. And that's why there's so many more components in the 3000 compared to, they used a very primitive basic one in the Boss pedal. Not to mention also that you have, that tenth of a millisecond, excuse me, being able to like, I think it's from it's either 1 to 10 milliseconds or 1 to 20 milliseconds. You can go up in a tenth of a millisecond increments on the original unit, which is great if you're going to do a flanger, because you can really get that, just tweak that just right. I've got a great chorus that I've done too. That's about 25 millisecond delay and quite a generous amount of modulation going on too. It sounds really good. We were talking earlier about the DC 30 that Ed had in 81 that he used for chorus, for Pretty Woman and everything. And I found that you can get a pretty close approximation with the 3000, including this new pedal. And that's actually in my Guitar World article. I did a history on the back page, and I have my chorus setting in there as well. Pretty much similar to the one that's in the original manual, but I just tweaked it a bit.
So one thing I did when me and Jimmy were kind of working on it, with the 4 presets, and of course you play them, and you're like, okay, what is this setting to? What is this? And you feel like 3 and 4, where it's a quick slap back, is due to like the first, second albums where he's, got that slap, that really quick 1 repeat delay. It works for everything. Yeah. So I was like, well, where's Cathedral? Where's Dancing in the Street? And so I had the delay times for it, and I was messing with preset A4, and I could swear that's pretty much Cathedral or Dancing in the Street, because it's got that dotted A rhythmic delay, and it's got modulation like Cathedral. So I mean, maybe it is, maybe it isn't. It's
a little, the A4 is a little bit different, because that one does have the user feedback setting, and it does have the sine wave modulation going on. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it's basically it's pretty darn close. And that's the thing about it too. It's like, I mean, it's a delay unit, so once you get these general ballpark things, it's there. I mean, the presets on there are basically wet, dry, wet. There's 4 wet, dry, wet presets and 4 stereo that are identical to the wet, dry, wet, but just in stereo rig configuration. Mm-hmm. And you have essentially Ed's number 1 is Ed's latter day, 2012, 2015 tour long reverb, they're longer delays basically. And then you have a medium one, which is more, towards balance era and then you have a shorter one, which is like 5150. So, and then you have, like you said, there you have the slap back, kind of the echoplexy kind of, Ain't Talking About Love type of setting that's in there. That's pretty much the crux of it. And that's what Ed used it for. And yeah, Cathedral, of course, was not 3000, so they didn't do a Cathedral setting on it. That was the PCM 70, at least on stage from 85 onwards. What he used in the studio, I have no idea to this day what he used. I'm thinking he probably used a PCM 42 that was at Amigo, is my best guess, but I really don't know. I know that he had some MXR delay units in his 1984 rig as well. even tied, possibly. I don't know. There was like a few options. There weren't a lot back then, but there were a few things. I don't think it was the DC-30, even though that did delay too. And he could have done it on the DC-30, but he also used chorus on Cathedral. So
I wonder if they had a AMS Neve delay unit.
Could have. Yeah. I need, if anybody knows what they had at Amigo, Studios in 1981, not Sunset Sound, because that's the one record that they did, away from there. So, or 82, I guess. But even so, it's just, I'm curious to find out what that would be, what they had there, because that's probably what they had at the studio, I'm sure. And then Ed followed up on that. I mean, maybe he used his Echoplex. I don't think so, but you can do that. We have plenty of examples of the Echo trick going back to the 60s from little Jimmy Dickens onwards, of that. Albert Lee used to use an Echoplex, to do that stuff with Emmylou Harris. So that's, it is, that dotted 8-note delay trick was around for quite a while, but Ed of course took it to the nth degree with the chorus and the volume swells and everything.
Mm-hmm. I wanted to mention that if you get the pedal that we were talking about the manual, there isn't a real manual with it. You have to go to Boss and download it.
Yeah.
So just FYI. Yeah.
Yeah.
You get like a starter pack, you get like a starter brochure, but the real manual you have to download.
Yeah, it's confusing because they have the quick start, and then they have what they call the player's guide, which basically has a bunch of different setups, and then they have like the reference guide, and that's the one that you want because that's like about 60 pages or something like that.
Yeah, I just printed it out a week ago.
Yeah. And I actually took a screenshot just of the wet, dry, wet thing. Cause like I said, it's not what I thought it was. And when I unplug everything and I go to plug it back in again, I'm always like, what do I do again? It's like, I'm going to memorize it one of these days, but as I'm getting older here, it's kind of hard to, remember this stuff. And plus I'm always that's part of the fun, part of the hassle of what I do is I'm constantly changing stuff because I'm always testing stuff out, for doing product reviews or whatever. So I don't really have a permanent rig, of any sort. So that's going to be taking down the wet, dry, wet thing is going to be a drag. I'm going to have to put that aside somewhere or whatever. But and that's the other thing I recommend. If you're serious about it and you don't want to get too big of a rig, get a stereo power amp, because again, the left and right, the so-called wet, they're actually direct. It's kind of a mix. It's mostly direct actually. And it's very little bit of wet signal. So the outputs are actually mixed on it. So, and that's the way Ed used it. It was mostly direct. So you basically have your signal coming out, your initial note coming out of the 3 amps, loud and clear. And then the delays are coming in, left and right a little bit later and a little bit more subtle. But get a stereo power amp, a couple 1x12s, and then just, if you can use a little 1x12, rig in the head or whatever, combo or whatever, for your center amp, and you're good to go. And that's, it's not the lightest thing, but it works, and especially if you're concerned about keeping your costs down, you don't want to be running 3 amps or whatever, up there. It's really not necessary because you're getting that whole amp feed again from the way that the effects loop on the pedal works. You're getting the whole amp feeding out to those wet, the left and right wet outputs.
And like you said, Jim and Chris, one thing true, the manual, that's one way to do it. That's probably like I think it's kind of a really crazy way to use 3 complete amps. I'm just using like my 100-watt Serb with a Friedman cap, and then I'm running to a frat power station because I got to power down.
Yeah.
And I go straight from that to the pedal, and then I go out of the left and right to the pedal to a Fryette stereo power amp to the 112s I have, the little Agnators. And they're loud as hell.
Yeah.
And it works great. It's, and I'm getting that dry of my Sir in each of those little amps. I'm not using 3 different amps. So I don't have to use the ground loops because I'm just using 1 amp. I'm not getting phase like you would if you had 3 amps possibly.
Right.
Which is kind of nice.
Oh, exactly. Yeah. It simplifies it. And I think it's cleaner. It's it's less confused. You're not getting any coloration from the left and the right, going on. So you're sticking to that pure. Again, Ed used a half stack. That was the core of his live sound. That was the core of his sound always a half stack, you know, so except for 78 when he, you know, he hooked all the amps up, you know, in series and everything like that. Of course, he learned later on that it's just easier to, you know, just have a real simple thing and you make it big.
That's how Les and I were talking. That's how I always understood wet, dry, wet. That you don't run wet, dry, wet with 3 amps. You run wet, dry, wet with 1 amp, and you power the other cabs with the, you know, the power amp. You know what I mean? And only now have I seen that, like, you know, people are suggesting that you run it with like 3 different amps. I mean, yeah, you could, but everybody I knew back, you know, before this brochure came out and you know, telling you to run 3 katanas or whatever it was, you know, it was always everybody, you know, all the pros ran wet, dry, wet with like 1 amp and
yeah,
you know, power amps, you know.
And that's Ed. Again, Ed had those. Of course, they're humongous. You know, he had the H&H V800s, which are massive. Those are beasts. You know, that he used for that. But you can get. I mean, it's still a little bit expensive. But the VHT, I forget what the one they have that's out there. I think it's only a single rack unit, even maybe 2 rack units. I forget, but they've got a decent power amp out there that sounds great with guitar. You know, get that. It's, you know, the cost of a combo, really, and again, a couple 1x12 cabinets, and then whatever you use for your main amp, and you're good to go. You don't have to buy 3 separate amplifiers. And I don't recommend it. Actually, I kind of recommend keeping it clean and simple.
Yeah, right.
Okay.
If you're really serious about it.
Okay.
You know, and if you want to, you know, if you're lucky enough to have a guitar tech and you don't want them to quit, you know, that's the other thing too. So, and if you have to do it yourself, then you're not cursing yourself every night as much. So, for doing it. But and then again, you know, Pete Thorns shows off with the Sur IR. Actually, even the unit I have, it doesn't have it has an IR built into it, not the selection of it. But if you have IR software, it doesn't matter anyways. But the direct sound is just phenomenal. In fact, I think that's like the best sound on Pete Thorns videos when he's just doing the direct there out of the, you know, out of the Sur head into the IR box, you know, into the DI. I mean, and
yep.
You know, just splitting it out, the 3 things, you know, to his DAW sounds amazing. So
Chris, before like the pedal came out, I was using the 2 Rolands, and then I have a parallel dual stereo line mixer, so I can do a mix 1 and mix 2, so I can mix in those delays, and you can really, really fine tweak it, how much delay you want with your dry signal onto those cabs, and it's great.
Yeah. It's good to have that flexibility. If you know, like Ed initially had, you know, the mixer in his rig, and over the years, you know, like around, I don't know if it might have even been 2007 tour. I didn't really get a good close look at his rig then, but you know, he moved away from that into just, you know, because he had it already tweaked. It's like, okay, this is how it is, you know, and I count on my front of house guys, and they capture the stuff and whatever, so I don't need to tweak it. But yeah, it's a great way to go, is to have the mixer too, if you can do that. And it's then you can really adjust for the room, you know, deciding, hey, I think I need just a little bit more of that ambience going on. You know, it's just sounding a little dry in this room for whatever reason.
Interesting.
So how have you guys been using it? What have you been doing with it so far?
Yeah, I wanted to mention, I was waiting to mention this, but I play in a band, and like I can't carry, you know, 3 cabs, even if it's a 112, even if it's 2 like 112s.
Right.
And so I run it really basic, and this is for people that, you know, pretty much have like the same setup as me. Like I've got a Kemper, I run it through a real cab, I've got a pedal board, and when I first tried it, it seemed like it seemed like the delays were the trails were too prominent for me. But I found this preset that was in bank A, and it's A1, and you can't hear a repeat. It kind of broadens your sound a little bit, though. You can I don't have the best ears. You can tell that there's something going on. It's adding something to it, right? Where it's giving you a little bit of a spread, and that's kind of like what I wanted, because I'm only playing through 1 cab. And I tried it the last 2 shows, and you know, the classic Van Halen, you never really heard Ed have repeats or trails. You know, when he stops, you know, Beautiful Girls, you don't hear a repeat or anything.
Right.
But so with that A1 preset, it does give you that kind of spread that I was looking for. We were talking about this on the show, before this one, how I didn't have the pedal yet. So I was wondering whether or not it was useful to me. I wanted to try it out, but it is, if you're into like delays, this thing is perfect for you. Me, I play in a Van Halen tribute, and again, like the like the classic Van Halen songs don't have a repeat, so I didn't want to stop playing and have it repeat like 2 or 3 times, trail off on like the classic Van Halen. Now the For Unlawful Carnal Knowledge and everything past that, I think it is a bit wetter, and there might be more repeats, and Les and I were talking about this, that maybe I haven't played it through a wet dry wet system, so maybe through a system like that the repeats aren't as prominent as it is coming through just one cab. But I found it useful, and I'm keeping it. It adds something to my sound, and like I said, if you want something subtle, it's there. If you want to, if you're into like Dokken or George Lynch, that had that delayed sound on some stuff, then it's perfect for that too. But for me, I just run it very simple. So if you're interested in this pedal, you can run it simple, or you can run it as complex as you want.
And that's the thing. I did want to mention. Robert mentioned about, can you use EHX power amp pedals? Absolutely. You can go direct. That's the other thing, because again, it's feeding you. It's if you use the loop, you can feed the left and right. The so-called wet. I call them mixed. Really, that's more accurate. You can send the mixed signals out to a board. And I haven't tried it, but it's like, that's pretty much what Thorn was doing with the direct thing. He did have the IR in there, so but that again, if that's the only thing you're really lacking is the speaker thing. But if it's coming through speakers, and it's, a lot of times it's good enough, if you don't have it mixed up too high or whatever. Again, you want some ambience, you want that spread, you can do that. Mm-hmm. So, and of course, a lot of boards now, you can even put IRs in the damn board. So, go for it. But it doesn't have to be expensive. That's the thing. And they have solved so many of the headaches and the expense of putting together a wet dry rig. They've really simplified it for people out there, especially for home recording. You could kind of do that stuff with recording too. It's, just split your signal off and whatever. It's not too hard to do, but it's just, again, it's that sound of the 3000 that just makes all the difference. And I need to also mention, Steve Vai was another big user. He used it for years. I think he used it about the same time as Ed's. I think he started using an 85 or so, and it stayed in his rack. I think it may still be in his rack for all I know. I saw some.
Oh, I'm sorry. I saw a picture of Steve Vai. He's practicing his old Charvel with a carbon hashtag, and he's got SDE right on top of it.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
So
that was 85.
And again, it's like, Vi has really been into tech. I worked with him when I worked at Roland too. I used to go up to the studio up there, down below the Hollywood Hills, below the Hollywood Sun, when he lived over in that section before he moved over to the other side, the dark side of Los Angeles. But I was always taking over new stuff to show him all the time. They had a 3D audio processor, and I remember Steve immediately shot it down within 5 minutes because it basically worked on phasing. It's like Steve's like, I go to great lengths to eliminate phasing from my recordings, and this thing just throws it back in there. But that's how it worked. It was just, it created the 3D illusion. Because it's basically a stereo speakers, and it sounded like 3D. It was amazing, but it was really weird. It was very sensitive to people's ear shapes. It was really a very strange thing. I had a Subaru station wagon. That was the best thing for demoing it. It was the weirdest thing, because for some reason, the way those speakers were in there, like everybody I showed this thing, they were hearing sounds coming from behind them and on top of them and all around and whatever, but you put them in a controlled studio environment with some nice monitors, and 50% of the people would hear it and 50% wouldn't. But good times,
Yeah. I guess the way I'm running it, it's just right now it's in the wet dry wet config. It sounds great. First thing I do is kind of like when I get a pedal, I like to make sure I understand it. If I can change presets or whatnot, or put my own in there. And I started putting some of Ed's old he had certain presets of like 500 milliseconds for solos for like black and blue.
Right.
That's got 500 milliseconds according to, I guess, one of the tab books, so it's 500, where it's kind of a slower delay. And I would put some of those in there, and for solos, and just try to get the mix right. And I try to put Dancing in the Street, just some of the more rhythmic cathedral delays in there that I kind of knew what the times were. And I put 1 or 2 edge delays in there, some really fast 16ths in there because I like to mess with the time subdivision.
Yeah.
So I think I've got about 5 presets in there.
Cool.
And it's kind of fun because I've got plenty of them, but I kind of really just go to one preset and hang out with that. And then eds are great because they're all different. They're real close. The 3 and 4 are close. 1 and 2 are kind of close. So it's kind of neat,
The ed presets are not, it's not a kitchen sink type of thing either. That's, it's just, this is what ed used. I mean, that's the bottom line of it. If you want, this is what ed did. This is what ed did with EVH. This is what they're doing with EVH. If you want what ed used and how he used it, this is what it was. So he had a few settings that he used, and with the 3000 live, and that's what you're getting. You're getting these various ones through the years, and as I mentioned them, like Alan's talking here, 325 millisecond slapback, basically. I mean, I think it might be a little bit longer on this unit. It didn't seem to be quite the Running with the Devil, or they ain't talking about love, or the On Fire type of slapback, but I don't know. I'll have to see. Sometimes I play Van Halen stuff faster too. So you get hyped up playing it, and you can't help but just play it faster. So, I mean, Panama, I always play about 20 beats too fast. So, but hey, another cool thing about this unit, you can do BPM clock into it. It has all the time division stuff in it. Again, this is stuff that wasn't on the original unit. You just got your millisecond delay times, and you figured it out, with the calculator if you were of that type and doing techno music or whatever. But now you have that all at your fingertips, like on any good modern delay pedal. So it's really well thought out. I mean, it's a little bit difficult to read the, this delay here, but the display is just, it
looks like Star Wars language.
Yeah, Star Wars language, exactly. So, I mean, that's like when I had to put in the new system software. I think there was something like, it was like destruct or something that it said. I'm like, holy crap, do I want to press the button? Do I want to press okay? Is it going to like just smoke? It's like, did I get the secret, Mission Impossible unit here? I was like talking with the guy at Roland. It's like, is it okay? It says destruct on it. It's like, no, it's at least it seems to say destruct on there from what I can make out. But yeah, some of the stuff can be really hard to read. That's the only, I mean, I love that it looks like, Back to the Future, it looks like the flux capacitor setting or whatever in there, but it's old school, but you'll figure it out eventually. But yeah, it's deep. It's got some depth to it. It's got some really cool features in there if you dig around on it. And, it's not just a delay pedal. It's 2 delay pedals, first of all, not just one. It took me a while to figure out, like, 'cause I guess there's the master mode, and then there's the, what was the other one that they called it? They had 2 different modes, and one's like good for programming, because you can turn on the individual delays 1 and 2, but you can't use it live because if you tap 2 at the same time, that takes you to a different mode, for changing presets or whatever. But if you want to just do on and off, like most of us do, then that's the other one. I forget what they called that, but there was a different name for it. And that was a little confusing at first to figure out. How to go through the presets and how to do just, your on and bypass setting. But it's basically that second mode, but I think the master mode was the one that you use most for programming. You access the 2 delays separately. And the other one's just like a overall type of control.
One thing I kind of wanted to tell, I guess, a few people, if you're using it like I was using mine with my 5150 combo, just 212s, and, just in the effects loop. And so I think when I was going to some presets, you probably want to go in that setting if you're using your own, not so much EDs, but if you're using your own, you probably want to go into a serial, then a parallel, because you're going to get 2 delays going into one speaker. So you're almost going to get like an over modulation. Yeah. And it's not like something's wrong with my amp or pedal. That's just, you're putting 2 delays in one speaker. So you're probably going to get some kind of a phase. So I would go switch it to serial and see what sounds best. I mean, you might like that, but that's what's kind of cool about it, because the original, as you know, it didn't have it. And I mean, if you ran it to a speaker, you got what you got. But on this one, you can actually tweak it to, if you're hearing this, and adjust some things or turn on the output or whatever. It's too many delete, repeats, just bring it back, just push a button and go down.
And that's
you can change the serial and parallel. It's very powerful as far as phase.
Yeah, it's like it's a built-in mixer too. That's the other thing. I mean, it's like all this routing stuff, all the cables you would have to use with the original unit, to redo things and to reconfigure it and whatever. And a lot of stuff just didn't work. You couldn't get the two units to really lock up 100%. As I mentioned earlier, which is why I didn't use it for Cathedral, because you can't get them to lock. They just.
And don't forget the ghost in the machine too, Chris. When you unplug things and you go somewhere and you plug them back in exactly how they came out, and there's always going to be an issue.
Oh yeah, absolutely. But yeah, just ingenious. I mean, it's really poor Matt Bruckman, he just was saying this was just such a, because EVH is something that he has complete control of. This time he had to really work with an outside party. And so there was just, they've got a work ethic at EVH that's just insane. It's 24/7. And it's like, good is not good enough. It's got to be perfect, and it's just, they work so hard on that stuff. And it just, to pull this off like they did, but it was going to be all or nothing, basically, as far as he was concerned, as far as Ed's legacy was concerned. It had to be right.
Chris, there was a question in the chat earlier. I think it was from Holly Lewis, and I don't know whether or not you can tell us this, but I've got to ask the question. Do you know of any other projects that EVH are working on that you could perhaps tell us about? Sorry for diverting.
Yeah. I really can't talk about too much stuff that's coming up. I mean, this one surprised me a bit because they hinted at it when I talked, which I wasn't for public consumption, but they hinted at a wet, dry, wet product. And I thought it was going to be an amp. I thought it was going to be like an all-in-one combo amp, with like 3 speakers or something into it that you could plug into or whatever, something crazy like that. And I was thinking, it's going to be, because I just, EVH, I think guitars, amps. I don't think about effect pedals. And of course, the 3D 3000, I thought that was beyond, but I didn't realize they were collaborating with Boss on this. But it's like, this just makes perfect sense. I mean, you got to just, an amp, a wet, dry, wet amp just wouldn't make sense. You need to be able to spread the speakers out and have independence and whatever. And it's easier to mic when they're in 3 separate cabinets. There's more isolation and that sort of thing. But yeah, just I can't say, unfortunately, when it's time. I mean, we still got the SE-126 to come out. I mean, that's hopefully going to be soon. Wolfgang's album's coming out in a little more than a month and a half from now, and it's killer. It's I've heard the whole damn thing, and it's just, oh man, just fasten your seatbelts, people, because it's 10 times what the first record was. He's found his voice.
That first one was awesome.
First one was awesome, but this one's like beyond. I mean, the production on this is just like, oh my God. There's just some layers going on. The way that the bass and the drums and the guitars mesh, the punch, the clarity out of it. It's just, I mean, I wish that A Different Kind of Truth had Elvis Basket behind the board almost. I mean, I don't know if his skills were quite that good 10 years ago, but, him and Wolfgang working together have really become quite this team. And it sounds, just the production's just amazing. Wow. And and it's cool to hear Ed's old guitars and some tracks being put to good use and everything. And it's just, and it's heavy. It's got some stuff that's pop. It's gonna be on the sort of a crossover. I think he kind of outdoes the Foo Fighters on a few songs. So it's just those hooks that just stay with you. I'm still like, I'll wake up in the middle of the night and it's like, where'd that come from? Oh yeah, Wolfgang. Shit, it's just like he got his hooks in you, man. The guy's got some real talent going on, and he does everything on the record. Absolutely everything, except I think Uncle Pat operated the wah on one song, and that's that's about it.
I'm just not sure if I dig the guitar, but that first single that he released off the new album, I absolutely love.
Yeah, there's more of that type of stuff, and there's more of other stuff on there. I mean, a lot of guitar textures. There's a lot of really cool mid-range going on, like classic, good old rock and roll mid-range. Just that just sucks up the middle of the mix and everything. Vocal-like kind of thing going on. There's like a wah solo, just all kinds of stuff going on. It's not one-dimensional, but it's heavy. And I will say that there's an overbearing arc to the album. It's that it's heavy, it's really hits hard. Like even like the stuff that is poppy, it's still got these just wall of sound, mammoth guitar going on. So, but back to the pedal.
Oh, hey, one quick question more about Wolfgang. Did he get rid of that SSL console and get a Neve in there?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
I thought I saw him in there with a Neve. I know that he'd replaced it, but so I guess he didn't like the sound of that SSL.
He's really redone the studio, to 5150 to his needs, to what he wants, and everything for it's his playroom now.
Mm-hmm.
So he has sounds he has in mind, and Elvis had a lot of input on what they wanted in there, but they've completely refurbished it. I haven't seen it in person. I've seen the photos. I mean, I know some people are talking about, it's cool to see how Ed decorated. It's like, Ed didn't decorate it. That's Wolfgang's.
Yeah.
Wolfgang's the one who put the picture of the old house in Amsterdam up on the wall, and all that stuff. It's all Wolfgang's doing. So, I mean, when Ed was running the show, it was a mess. It was kind of like sloppy, and stuff was thrown all over the place and whatever. And now Wolfgang's got it all clean and professional looking, like, like it's, Ocean Way or something like that.
Yeah, right. Well, it's just, I saw the Neve. I'm like, man, that Neve wasn't there before. That was an SSL before.
Yeah, it was an SSL before that Ed never really jived with the automation on it. But he didn't really like the SSL, and the Neve, sat better with what he needed. And it is. Neve's just great for guitars and drums.
Nice.
So that's the crux of what Wolfgang's about. Well, guitars and drums. So, SSL's great, but it's a little bit better for those more pristine, kind of multi-layered, lots of different instruments kind of things going on. Much more modern production, a little bit more airy and everything like that. Whereas this is all about punch, hit you in the gut type of stuff. So that's really what's going on. I'm hoping to go by in August, so I'll keep you people posted on what I get to see. I've got an invitation to visit, and I'm just hoping that the timing's all right, that I can drop in.
Very cool.
Absolutely, Chris. Fantastic. If there's anything that we can share with folks here in the chat and on our other social media links, we'd appreciate that. Thank you for that.
Sure, absolutely.
Or if you need a buddy to go with,
Yeah. If you need a roadie, Jimmy's keen.
Maybe I'll need a driver. I'll become a hardcore alcoholic, and I'll need a driver. So.
Yeah. Hey, whatever. Doesn't matter. Whatever.
I just say, hey Matt, I can't drive anymore because I'm drunk all the time. So do you mind if I bring my driver with me?
Here's Jimmy. He's my driver.
Yeah.
That's a plan.
No, very cool, Chris. Very cool.
Yeah, this is cool.
Now, have you guys dug in? I haven't really dug into, like, are there, beyond the presets, beyond the basic front panel, the A 1 through 4 and the B 1 through 4? Have you guys dug into anything beyond that?
Well, those are the only ones that are on it. So you can overwrite those if you want, which I've done.
Yeah.
In some of the A. I've actually saved some stuff to the C bank. That's where like the big empty ones are.
Right, right.
Those are the blank. That's a blank canvas. So
that's all. Those are all blank. Okay, because I haven't gone into the MIDI side yet, or gone through USB to see if if they had anything else stored in there or not. So
yeah, just those. I haven't gone MIDI. I've thought about going maybe MIDI in a week. I haven't really had the need to, really. There's nothing I can't do anyway. It's not like I'm switching. I can just change presets if I want to do something. I don't need to change parameters.
I was gonna do the MIDI thing. Les and I talked about that even yesterday. But yeah, like I said, I've got like my first patch 1 is that A1 thing that I've got that I leave on constantly, and then like the second one, I really just need like something for Cathedral, and you were talking about that 424 millisecond thing a bit ago, and that's what I have, 424. And so that's really it. For me. But like I said, if you're, I'm not a huge delay guy, but I know I need it for like certain parts. But if you're into delay, like Les is into delay, right? If you're into delay,
I'm broke because of delay.
It's unbelievable, I kind of delved into the manual a little bit, and I was reading. That's where I kind of realized that you can't you can't copy the EVH presets into an A bank or a B bank. They won't copy them. Now
Right.
you can copy the A to B and B to A
Right.
and whatever.
Yeah,
But,
no, the EVH ones are just burned in, and they're
Yes.
super top secret.
Yes.
Nobody can, they can't be splayed out on the floor of Mar-a-Lago or anything
Which
like
I
that.
kind of respect. I kind of respect that. Like you're
Yeah.
buying this for those presets. It's a little, it's a little disheartening that you can't just copy it. But I can understand they're just burned in there. You're not gonna, you can't.
They know the drill though, because that's going to be the first thing people are going to buy. The one they're going to save $100. And
yes,
again,
exactly.
It's not just the presets you're getting for $100. You're also getting, like I said, that you're getting that loop.
Yeah.
You're getting the noise suppressor in the loop. You're getting
all those different outs. Yeah.
Exactly. So you're getting a lot for the money extra for that. But it's just my article, as I said, in Guitar World, will have course setting. Maybe we can do a part 2, and I can have some more time. I can program some stuff in there. I mean, I know you can get flangers out of it. I mean, it's a digital flanger, so it's not quite as good sounding as like these good old MXR or an analog flanger or whatever. But there is a lot more stuff you can do with it.
Mm-hmm.
And it is quite versatile. And it's kind of interesting because it's so anti-Roland not to come with just a ton of like whiz bang presets, because that was kind of like Roland's thing was almost, let's make the goofiest presets imaginable and load this thing with them. It's kind of like their synthesizers and all that were all, and a lot of their effects units are always like, let's make the craziest sounds here that no one will ever use, And this unit is actually kind of, in a way, nicely missing that. And
it seems a little bit more serious, like a serious pedal as opposed to.
It is more serious. And an interesting thing, this kind of goes back to my days at Roland. One of my good friends, Marty Frazou, worked in the service department there. And he said pretty much 95 to 97% of all the products that came back into service did not have any user programs in them. They were all the presets. People just didn't program their own stuff. I mean, this is also was things were getting where it was getting harder. And it wasn't like the good old, one knob for every function type of thing. But even so, a lot of people didn't do that. And I kind of like the way that this unit actually kind of encourages you to do your own thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's got the Ed stuff in it, but, we've got all these empty things. If that's the case, it's like, do your own thing here.
Mm-hmm. There's a question, Chris, from our very good friend Al in the chat. And he's making a good point about the Edge. Go and listen to the Unforgettable Fire to get that delay tone. That's a comment that Alan has made after this comment here. Do you know, can you read that question? Can you see that, Chris? Do we know if the dual SD3000s were an Ed's fly rig for things like Saturday Night Live in 87?
Well, answering about the Edge, he did mention that, the Edge used them before. Ed. That's true. The Edge was he was on the cutting edge, to say as the pun goes. I mean, he when it came to delays, he was getting the new stuff before everybody. He was really, it was such a big part of his sound. So of course he was going to want to check out the newest and latest unit. Prince is another guy that always got stuff ahead of the curve. There was one, I can't remember the exact model number, but there was a guitar processor that we came out with that, again, had one wacky preset in it that was really cool, very synth sounding, very un-guitar-like. And Prince loved that. And he wanted to buy the entire run. He wanted us not to come out with the product. He said, I want this all for myself. It was absurd.
What year this?
What's that?
What year this was? What year? I'm sorry, what year this was?
Oh, that would have been about 89. It probably been 1990.
Wow.
It wasn't a GP8. It might have been what they came out. It was a GP16, or there was maybe another GP unit. It was one of those guitar multi-effects processors.
Because I had your SD, I had the SDX 330, which was the chorus one, modulation.
Right.
Yeah, because that had a tri-chorus that I liked. And that came out in 94, I believe, with the SDE 330. They were like chorus, and you got a reverb. And they redid the SRV 332.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
And they were just dedicated units. But the GP8 and 16 were those were big hits.
Yep. I'm going to have to head out here because I hit my time. limit. So I will go through the private chat. I'm not the private chat. The comments here. If I see anything, Andrew, I'll let you know any answers to anything. If you people have any further questions you want to ask, pop them up there. Maybe we can do a part 2, and I'll let you guys, Jimmy and Les, take over.
Yeah.
We'll definitely do a part 2, Chris. Definitely, we'll be in touch, and we'd love to get you back for part 2. I'm sure.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. Good chat.
Cool.
Yeah. Thank you.
Glad to
Thank
be
you,
of
Chris.
service,
Enjoy your
and,
dinner.
Thank you. We'll see you guys.
Yeah. You good?
Awesome. So, guys, before we continue the chat, I just want to do a shout out to everybody here in the chat. Thank you for joining us with Chris. It's always a pleasure and an honor to have him join us on our small little channel here, guys. And I don't know about you, Les and Jimmy, but jeepers, you know, the information he was sharing, holy cow, brothers.
I know. Up until yesterday when you told me, I had no idea he worked for Boss Roland.
Yeah. I was like, what?
That's cool. And like he had a contact with Ed around that time over the SDE 3000s. I mean, wow. He's going to 5150 in a couple of weeks.
And one of you guys are going to have to go as his driver.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Yeah.
I'm gonna slowly poison Les, so it'll be me. Oops.
Well,
maybe I shouldn't have said
Didn't you hear that knock at your door?
Yeah. And what I like particularly about what we're doing here too, guys, is, you know, folks, Jimmy and Les have got the pedal, and you guys have been playing with it for a week and a bit. So it's interesting getting your guys' feedback and interaction with Chris as well. So thank you, brothers. That's fantastic.
Yeah, I used it the past couple of weeks live, and you know, for what I needed it for, because I remember we had a show, I don't know, a couple of weeks ago, and I was like, I have this thing coming, I'm not sure if it's going to be, what I want, and I might just send it back, but no, I'm keeping it for what I need it for. It does, and like I said, I don't have the best ears, but it does add some like width to your sound. That's what I was, and I'm only running it through one cab, and like I said, a couple of minutes ago, if you're into delays, Alan just said about like the edge and stuff, if you're into U2, I mean, Les played me. We were talking yesterday, and he gave me like a cathedral. Hey, Tom, something, into delays,
I heard
just said about,
I heard Chris needs a driver, so
into U2. I mean, Les played me.
Hold on a second.
We were talking yesterday. Tom, do you have your thing on or something? Hey, Tom, into delays,
I might. Hold on one second.
I heard,
hold on a second. Chris needs a driver.
He's got like a reverse delay. I'm hearing.
Sorry about that, folks.
I think he's got a show on, or something like that. Anyway, what I was saying is like Les played, and then he played what Streets Have No Name or something, and it was almost, remember, it was almost the exact same delay, if not the exact same delay.
Yeah, we what was it? I played. Was it Dancing in the Streets? And then and then or Cathedral, whatever.
Les, I think you were playing Dancing in the Streets with No Names. That's what you were playing.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Dancing one, with no name in the streets.
That's a good
Thank you, guys. I'll see you later. Have a good night.
Hey, I'm here all week.
I played the U2, or just any rhythmic delay, and it worked perfect. It was great. It's like if I had a Strat, it would be that sound, but I'm just using gain, so it seemed like the same preset to me. Something that would work.
Really?
Yeah.
I mean, so that's what I mean. Like, I use mine, really basic, but if you're a delay, like I said, I'm not a delay guy, but I ended up buying this because, I wanted something, I had a Cathedral setting in my Kemper, but this one sounds a little bit better, so I really, for me, I'm only going to use like two presets, that main one that I'm going to have on the whole time, and then when I have to do Cathedral, I hit that second one and then switch back. But I think my point is that even if you're not a delay guy and you want this to be like some kind of like, like maybe widen your sound or like have a little bit more spread in your sound, it works, and that's ideally, if you go back to a couple of weeks ago, that's what I wanted to see if it would do. And it does. And it's that preset A1 basically for me.
Yeah, so like you said, basically it's not just a copy of the SE3000, it's a SD3 E3000 and beyond. Like so you can,
oh man.
So you can
and one thing you can do too is, like, if you're playing a clean sound, you want it to delay. If you really bring in that modulation, you've got a chorus. You literally have a chorus. Like, it's got a lot of big modulation if you set it right. So you can really tweak it. And if you're in a stereo, you got stereo delay and chorus. I mean, you got that too.
In the chat, OU812 mentioned Cathedral is the 424 in front of the other 250 and 500 delays. I never actually realized that. I thought he would shut them off, and he just turned on the lexicon for that. So he was having the 250, the wet dry wet 250 and 500 in the wet speakers, and then the dry in the center. And I mean, and I guess he had the lexicon going at the same time with all that. I don't know. I didn't realize he did that. I know, like, if you watch Jimmy Kimmel when he would do Running with the Devil, right after the solo, he would hit. I think while the wet dry wets were on the SDE 3000s, he would hit the lexicon and he would do that weird dive. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
And it would be like this weird kind of, I don't know. If anybody go watch the Jimmy Kimmel and on the last tour he did it on 2015, and during the solo Running with the Devil at the very end, I think he would hit the lexicon on there while the other delays were on, and he would do like that horse kind of squeal with the bar going down like a dive, and it would just sound like something like totally, from outer space. That he never really did that before. But I mean, I don't know. Somebody go check that out. I thought that's what he was doing, is just clicking the lexicon on there with the other delays on. But anyway,
and it's funny if you listen to. I hate to bring it up right here, right now, which is very unwatchable. On the solo, he's got a really strong delay on that,
Yeah.
So you can
the
really
solo is watchable. The rest of the show is unwatchable. With all
there's 30 costume changes. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
That's a shame too.
Okay.
I'd rather hear it and not see it.
yeah.
So, Conch, you're getting one of these, huh? You're getting one of these.
Yeah, exactly. I was kind of surprised. I didn't expect that, but
No, man.
My kids are all grown and have jobs, so they could chip in and do it for. So,
dude, it's Father's Day, man.
Father's Day gift,
Yeah.
So,
come on.
So I was surprised, but of course it's back ordered, so won't be until they said they're getting more in at the end of the month. I guess Sweetwater. That's what my wife told me. So I can wait. I have my DD 500, but I sent that out to get repaired by Boss. So.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, so
hopefully there won't be a delay in getting that back.
So what's that?
Hopefully there won't be a delay in getting that back.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, now I have a dry setup right now, guys.
There you go. Dude, delays are overrated, man. I seriously, I think the most commonly used term in the last 3 weeks was wet, dry, wet.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. We were talking
dry, wet, wet, dry, wet. Or,
but Chris doesn't really like that. You see, what does he call it? Like mixed?
Because mixed.
Right. It's really not totally wet. It's got some, mixed in there. Right?
Yeah. Well, you got some. You got
saturated.
Some mix. You got to have mix to get that signal.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you won't get nothing.
That's what we were talking about earlier. In that, like, up until this thing was announced, I never even thought about running 3 amps. I mean, it was always 1 amp and the power amps. Like that's always how it was.
Yeah.
Now, if you're running 3, and then the idea is, I don't know how true this is, but if you're running 3 different, let's say you're running a Marshall, an Orange, and a Mesa, wouldn't there be some kind of weird phasing or something? I don't know. But
that's too complicated.
Yeah, it's always. Right? I was like 3, maybe 3 of the same amps, like like that manual or whatever, that user guide that comes with it tells you to get 3 katanas. Like, get out of here, man.
But if you suppose you get 3 katanas, you will have to use those ground loops, because you're gonna get some phase between 2 or more amps. You're dealing with phase immediately.
Yeah.
3, you better use those ground loops because you're gonna get some hum or phase. You're gonna get probably hum, which is kind of interesting because that's why that noise suppressor I think is built for that purpose. It's just weird because that manual could be a lot better on wet, dry, wet. I mean, I don't know. That's one way to do it, but that's kind of the not ideal way, so to speak. I don't know. It just depends what you got.
Is that noise suppressor as good as it sounded on the Pete Thorne demo?
Yeah, it's quiet. There's
wow.
I haven't had a problem with any noise, and you got a ground lift. I haven't even turned that on yet.
Yeah, well, that's great. If you haven't turned that on, then it's obviously good.
I kind of forget it's there. I don't.
That's a great. I mean, they it was so cool that they really kept this thing secret, never talked about it at all, and then they incorporated stuff like that into it. It's just like, and then they just dropped it one morning. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's what I mean.
How cool was that? That was one of the cool things they did.
The only con that I've kind of stumbled across is that with that screen and that weird language, with
it looks like Star Wars. You can't read
where you're at exactly, so you got to follow the manual. I mean, I just recently I used it where, so now I know how to save a preset, like move a preset around, So, but you got to you got to press like 3 different buttons, and you get like these, you get the weird language, it's
not a drag. It's not like a drag, Jimmy. Poke and drag.
No. Dude, I'm gonna tell you this right now.
Simple stuff like that is. But like, then I kind of was looking at like how you would set up MIDI, and it was and when I was looking at it shows you the screen of what it's step 1. The screen looks like this, then hit this button and it's going to look like this. But when you look at the screen and the lettering, you're like, what is that even saying? It could be like MIDI user and it'd be MID, and then capital U, SER or something. You got to kind of decipher what's going on. But it's a killer unit. Like I don't think I was gonna keep it because, like I said, I'm not much of a delay guy. But it's like if you are,
you obviously notice on that A1 preset, whatever it's doing, it's like it's doing something.
No, you can, like I said, I don't have the best ears, and you can totally tell that something is going on. It kind of, kind of widens your sound. And that's kind of like what I was looking for,
Right.
I tell you what, some of that writing for that language is so. I mean, dude, Ray Charles be able to read it before you would. I'm serious, it's bad. It's like up, down, side T and stuff. You can't see that. It's like you have to refer to the manual back and forth.
Yeah.
Is that going to be one of the quirky things about the pedal that we're going to be talking about in years to come?
Probably. It's but it's
if somebody writes it out in a preset, I'm done. I'm like, I like the size.
Yeah, right.
It's just the right size too. It's not too big, it's not too small. It's like the Goldilocks of pedals, just right.
You know what? I'm thinking about actually tomorrow. I'm going to plug mine into the computer and see if there's like anything for the pedal. I don't even know if there's any firmware updates, to be honest.
Yeah,
that's what Chris was talking about. That you should connect it and see if you have the latest version or whatever.
Yeah.
Les, definitely do that, and then you can let us all know. It sounds like you're gonna have part 2 of this show. You know what I mean? I think there'll be people are gonna have questions and stuff. So I'm sure Chris would love to jump back on too with that. But so that could be fun.
Well, by then you'll have your pedal and you can jump in and and be part of the sharing the experience.
Yeah, exactly.
John,
exactly.
We're not going to get that pedal here in New Zealand until the end of the year, they reckon.
Oh wow.
God.
Yeah.
Conks, when we play again, we're gonna have 3 H9s, 2.
Exactly. It's gonna be.
Dude, your wet dry wet's gonna have wet dry wet.
We're gonna need Les there to watch this stuff so that nobody steals it all. It'll be a good take that night, right?
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah.
Need an entrance fee.
Yeah, there you go. Right. Jeez. Yeah,
but I tell you what, the one thing that I really dig, and I know Jimmy, you'll say this too, is the pedal looks so great in the dark. You can clearly read it, man. It's like,
I actually noticed that today. Yeah.
It's a cool, like, is it like purple blue? It's like a kind of weird blue.
It's like a regular bright blue. Yeah.
And
the LEDs are real bright.
Big.
Yeah, it's really bright. It's nice. Yeah, I had the lights turned off in in my basement, and I'm like, I just noticed that, it's funny that Leslie's saying, I'm like, oh yeah, you can really see this on a dark stage. You can really
That's
see,
cool.
like, like the pedals, the pedal is lit up where, for what bank and not for what like preset you're using, right? So you know exactly where you are, and yeah, it's pretty cool. Yeah.
Well,
And it's funny, you look at it from a view and it looks like a long calculator, like with those digits.
Yeah, it
It's all
does. Yeah.
It's all linear. But
Awesome.
when you play the EVH preset, you're like, oh, this is cool. I like it. Now, what did he use this for? And shit, what's that delay time? That's what So now it's kind of like you got the sound, and now the mystery is trying to figure out what that time is.
Yeah, you know what? It's hard to do because I mentioned before in the chat. It's like when I was doing the like Eddie kind of presets for the wet dry wet, the 398, 798, and the DD 500 because that has a vintage digital setting on it, which is the SDE 3000 algorithm that Yoshi told him to put in it, I guess, at the 11th hour before they did that. So I'm sure this obviously expands on it. It's way better, but you can kind of split that pedal into 2 delays and stuff like that. And but going in there, not knowing his settings and trying to, there's a thing called ducking. I don't know if anybody you guys are familiar with that. It's like, so basically when you're playing, you're not hearing the delay at all.
Not until you end it.
It's right until you end it, then you hear the delay. It's like you don't even really know. It's just kind of filling in those cracks while you're playing, you know what I mean? And then as soon as you stop playing, that's when you actually hear it. But trying to get that, I could never, get that exactly perfect. I mean, all those guys use that, Satriani and the
Lukather used that.
And Lukather, yeah, they all, it's an important thing, in their delay settings, I guess. But I could never get it where I was happy with it. And now I guess we don't have to, and don't have to worry about it for Van Halen stuff because I'm sure you're
going to get it. You're going to get it straight out of the box.
Yeah, exactly. So you don't have to worry about it, which is cool. I think that's, and like Jimmy said, I have no problem with them doing that. You know what I mean? It's smart.
Which is cool too. So, if you're like, hey, I want to make my own delays, and you can go into like, hey, I like this, whatever here is going on A3 or whatever, you can move that to another bank and just destroy that preset and leave the original alone. But you can tap tempo, which is great. I was using expression pedal to ramp up the delay setting where it sounds like a motorcycle, just messing around with it. Yeah. And it sounded really, really cool. And it was going stereo too. It was left and right. And it was nuts.
I'll be interested to see Chris's article.
Yeah, I'll definitely like to read that.
And like where he said that the DC-30, the chorus setting that I think he said he put it. I thought he said it's in there what his settings were for that kind of Diver Downy type of chorus that Ed was using on there. And that's like that little guitars one that we're always talking about, that chorus setting. That's so that's cool. You know what I mean? I look forward to seeing that. So,
and that DC-30 has got a great chorus on it too, man.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Beautiful
magical, that thing. Yeah. So if you can kind of get fairly close to that, that's just an added bonus to this pedal, So,
wow.
So you know what? 5 years in development or whatever it was, I'm glad we didn't know about it. It's just, it was so cool that it just dropped.
Yeah.
And they really took the time to do it and do it like right. You know what I mean? Because Chris was like chomping at the bit to A-B it with the real ones, and he was just like, oh my God, it sounds great. Even with like the Eventide, the H9, a lot of people are saying that, it's not the same as the H3000 and blah blah, but this one, everybody seems to, so far seem like, it's exactly like the rack units. So that's
dude,
John, he said that at the 24-minute mark. He said that at the 24-minute mark, didn't he, guys? That that pedal gives the closest approximation to the rack mounts that he's ever heard.
Yeah, it's great. And then, and the team of people that he had that were involved in it, he had the right people in there too. So
speaking of the price, I know it's $600, that's expensive, but you know what? I mean, you're really getting 2 SDE because the originals were mono, and I paid $300 each.
Yeah,
$320 each for them years ago. So that's $600. I mean, you're getting 2 delays for $600, and they're just cased together in a pedal, and they are truly separate. One's out, one left, one's out, one right. So
good point.
But it's actually it's a fair pricing.
Another point too, guys, that I want to mention that Jimmy said when we had Chris on too. that we should highlight. Go and download the PDF file from Boss's website. That's the full manual. Don't rely. And I think what a lot of guys, when they've been offering reviews on the pedals, have only been using Les, the information in the box.
Yeah, and that's more like a starter guide. So you can go to a reference guide, which is about, I think it's 47 pages, and then which is cool because at the very end of it, it's got the presets for A4, A1 through A4, and B1 through B4, and it shows you the exact how if they're parallel or serial. So if you're like, I like how this delay is, then copy that to another bank and then just change the times or whatever you want to change. So you have good starting points. There's useful delays in the presets besides the EVH. It's just a shame that you can't. The EVH, they are locked down. You can't do nothing.
You can't crack it, Les. You can't crack that code, brother.
No. I'm not going to comment on that, but I'm working on it. I'm just curious. It doesn't matter. I got the sound. It's not like I'd have the numbers and not have the sound. But no, it's a great pedal. It's cool. It's kind of like, it's exciting for me to hear when people get it. Like, what do you think? How do you like it? What are you using it for, or whatever? It's cool.
Yeah, I think that was a good point, Jimmy, to bring up. And this man thing of you don't need to read manuals. That's all bullshit. You got to.
It's RTF. It's RTFM. Read the fucking manual.
I can't do it. I'm sorry.
When I got mine, I tried
to.
Just glance.
You're reading it now.
Yeah, right. Reference it if you need it. If you got a problem,
I throw the manuals away. I throw them when I'm building furniture or something like that. I throw that shit away, and I just go. I do.
Even that IKEA shit. You can't.
Don't tell me, like, you guys. You know those blinds that you have in your house, and they come to all those little pieces and plastic parts and stuff like that. I throw all them away. I just take the screws. I screw the thing in there, and I stick them right up. Right?
No, come on. No.
Dude, Velcro everything.
You throw that crap away. Half of that stuff you don't need.
Dude, it's just extra parts, man. It's all bullshit.
Exactly. It's just a waste.
It's different if you're repairing a jet engine. Like, shit, where's the screw go?
Okay, but, maybe I'll look at their manual for this then.
I just want to do a pitch for Coxie 5150 here. He's started up a Boss group on Facebook, and we're all members there, and we've been sharing the stream there. So go and check out the SDE 3000 Roland Boss EVH user group. As far as I know, it's the only one at the moment that's there. It's the original. We're all there, so go and join the party over there. And as Coxie said, share your experiences over there as well. And we'll broadcast Jimmy, John, and Les part 2 of the show with Chris later on. We'll be broadcasting that there too, so folks can pop over and have a listen to see what Chris has to say. Gosh, that guy is a wealth of information, isn't he?
Man, yeah.
Yes. I say he's the most interesting man on earth. Look at that beer commercial we used to have here, Dos Equis. I go, Chris is the most interesting guy on the planet.
Yeah.
But you know what's good about that Facebook page too is, like, if everybody's on there and there's more questions pop up and stuff like that, we can if we have a part 2 to this show with Chris, we can revisit it at that point too, and delve into some of those questions that we all come up with over there too that we're talking about. So it'll
good
be helpful.
Point.
It'll be helpful.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's a good point. I've got a couple of picks here, guys, that we're gonna just quickly talk about. Hold on. So that's your rig there, Les Paul.
Yeah.
So we can see your pedal there in the front there.
Mm-hmm.
Sexy.
My gosh, it must sound. I'm not going to swear. It must sound phenomenal, bro. Going through that.
Yeah, it sounds good. It sounds clean. I've got it balanced in really good. You can before minus the pedal, and if you look right above, like where my pedal is, my Big Sky, you'll see an MLC. So that's my dual line mixer. So basically, I have a mix 1 and a mix 2, and you think like, oh, they're left and rights. Actually, they're not. So what I'll do is I can do like my compressor, my choruses on the left, and blend them in. If they're 12 o'clock, it's 50%, 50 dry, 50 wet. If it's all the way cranked, then those are 100% in the mix. And then I can blend the right is my delay and reverb. So I have really control over how much it gets kind of intricate. Sometimes I'll just leave them at 12 or whatever. But anyway, so like I've actually bypassing the rack right now and using just the Fryette power amp. So I'm going into my guitar into the Sir into the Fryette power station. So because I have to power down. It's just too loud. Then to the cab. Then I take a line out right into, you'll see the green on the input on the far right to my evidence. That's from the power station. Then my left and right is right into the back of that Fryette, and then the Fryette left and right to the cabs, and that's it. So really, I'm just running a delay and a wet, dry, wet with a power amp.
Okay.
And it's really pretty. You're just hearing the delay, and it's great. It's really clean, and you're really hearing the delay on the amp, and it's great. And that's just,
of course, the gratuitous shot of.
That's a new kind of delay.
Look at that.
Yeah, that's my and then that's what everything looks like. That's when it's clean. Normally it's just shit all over the floor. So the Egnator left and right little 112s, those are my wet cabs. They have a 80-watt speaker in it for cleaner. And then the on the far right Egnator is my power station it's just a reactive load powered load box with tubes. And then sometimes I'll switch out my Sir and I'll put my Marshall into that Friedman cab, or I'll switch up things sometimes. I'm trying to look at maybe getting a head switcher so I can not have to move heads all the time. It's a pain in the ass.
Okay.
But usually it's one cab going through wet, dry, wet at all times, and that's it.
Excellent. That's me at Monster Rock.
That's Jimmy at One Direction.
Had to put that in there. Had to sneak that in, Jimmy. Had to sneak it in, brother.
Yeah, man, that was 35 years ago in like 9 days, 626.
I can't believe you were handsome once.
Yeah, man.
Look at it, man.
If you look carefully,
you like Kyle MacLachlan, man.
Andrew, put that picture back up if you could, just for a second, right? If you look carefully in the distance, you can see Conks there too. See that guy over there?
Literally, if you look to the right, I was literally sitting right over there somewhere. I mean, I'm right at the right side of that picture somewhere.
Hey, Jim, that guy to the left of you, is that like the dude from Dazed and Confused?
No, that dude was in
dude.
That dude, it does look like that, but that's Dennis Gergley. He was in this pretty much one of the major bands that came out of Connecticut called INC. It was like a thrash metal band, and they had a record deal. They tried doing something. They're still around. They still kind of like tour every couple of years or whatever. But yeah. But look at how high up I was at Giant Stadium. You know what I mean? I think there was only like 2 rows behind me. I swear to God.
How many does that seat? I've never been there.
70,000, I think.
Sold out. Mm-hmm. Sold out, wasn't it, Jimmy?
Oh yeah.
And it was
a hot day. It was a Sunday, right, Thomas? It was a Sunday, right? We were talking about.
Yeah, a hot day.
I remember waking up that day and being, because that was the second time I ever saw Van Halen, right?
Yeah.
I remember waking up that day. I'm like, let's get this on, man. Let's go see VH. You know what I mean? And I loved every band on that bill. Even
Sure.
Kingdom Come. I loved every band on that bill.
Cotton Bowl was 92,000.
That's it.
Damn, that's huge. I mean, like you're going to be able to tell, but yeah, seeing him in '86 was my second time.
Mm-hmm.
And then '88 was my third.
It was so hot there, and the day was so long that by the time the Scorpion, I was like, "Oh, can we just skip the Scorpion?"
Oh yeah, it was.
Yeah,
no offense to the Scorpions, but I was just like,
yeah.
I mean, by the time Van Halen came on, I was kind of spent because that hot sun all day, like 90 degrees.
Yeah, it was. It was an ordeal. Yeah.
It was
Yeah.
rough. Yeah, it was.
Like I wouldn't want to do it right now.
I want to mention something really quick.
Yeah.
This is what I use to. So I come out of the speaker out of the amp head, and I go right into that speaker through on the bottom there. And then the other side goes out right to the cabinet, the center cabinet, the dry one. And then the top right up there, it drops it down a line level. And then you take it out of there, and then you go to your, your SD3.
Yeah. So what you're going to do is you're going to go through you're going to plug in your head. You're going to go through your head out through the speaker through, then right back to your cabinet, right?
Right.
Take the line out, and you're going to go
to my
straight to the
center
input.
cabinet. I go through the one on the bottom there. I go through and right to the center dry cabinet, and then the top line out that drops it down to line level, and then I go into the stuff like the the delays, the SDE 3000.
Yeah, exactly.
And I also have like my H9 in there too. So it's down the
you'll
line
go to
level.
the first. You would go to the first effect, whatever, or if you had a switcher or whatever. Yeah, that David Bray box is nice. That's like
it's $50, folks. And if you don't want to, Les and Chris, they have like a very expensive one. This is it's made to order. You got to call. You got to get in touch with David Bray, and you go on his website and you order it, and he builds it, and then he mails it to you. And it's literally it was $50, and the thing is incredible. And so you don't, if you want, what are you using, Les? Fryette are you using?
Yeah, Fryette.
Yeah.
Or I'm using the power station for reactive load, but it's cool because it has a effects loop or line out send. So I just use the effects send.
Right. Yeah. So, but it's like for $50 if you're doing a wet dry wet and you want to, and then all you need is your power amp and your other two cabinets, and that's basically all you need. And you could, you can do it from there. It's if you're
Sir makes a line out too,
and it's got a ground lift in it too, actually. So it's great.
Yeah. So you will not get a ground hum from to your pedals, which is good. The Sir makes a line out driver too, which you can control the send like that knob you have, because sometimes you don't want to send 100% out.
Right.
Okay. Yeah, I just use an aux box, guys, with my amps. I've got an aux box, and I also have the Captor X on. At the moment, my Captor X is on my 5150 combo because I'm at home, and on 6 or 7 guys, you guys are you're familiar with the combo. You can't play that at 6 or 7 at home. It's insane.
No, yeah.
Anything above 2, you're waking the neighbors up, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you guys got expensive taste, man. The aux box. I got that. I have that $100. What is that thing? That Bugera, the one that they ripped off Saldano.
Okay.
Jet City thing.
Expensive taste, but look at that rig, folks.
I have that. It's that Bugera thing. It's like it was $100. See where my hand is right there?
Yeah.
Apparently, it's like, they're made in China, and they basically ripped off the Jet City, I guess it was the Saldano one that Saldano.
Yeah.
It's apparently the same inside. It's the same exact thing, but it was like, and that one guy, the bald guy on YouTube that does the reviews, I can't think of his name.
Yeah, I know you're about,
Yeah, he put it up to his Rivera Rock Crusher.
Yeah.
And he's like, you know what, folks? He's like, this thing is like costs like 5 times as much as this. He goes, so I don't know how long these last, but he goes, you can throw them away and buy 5 of these for what it would cost for this thing. And he goes, it's pretty good, I have to say. So I just took a shot at it, and it actually is pretty good. I mean, so it attenuates it pretty decently. The
hot plate is still, they've actually made that a lot better this year. And there's like a line out, and they're selectable, 8 ohms, 16 ohms, 4 ohms, whatever you want to do. So they've gone up in price, but they are good. They're small too, but man, those things, they get hot. My Fryette, man, I'll tell you what, it's got tubes. Those tubes will light up in a minute. But see, here's what's funny. So if I'm using my Sir, my Fryette is fine. But if I use my 71 Marshall, that Fryette gets hot. It's really hot. I can smell it. So I don't like using the Marshall, man. I don't want to melt that thing.
Yeah, right.
Because I don't think those old Marshalls like to be loaded down. Because when you start messing with that plate voltage, it gets kind of. If I mess with that transformer, where am I going to get another? Hey, do you have any 71 transformers from Marshall?
Good luck.
Yeah, and then so I don't like to I won't load the Marshall down for more than 30 minutes at a time.
No.
You know, I'll play for about 30 or 20 minutes. I'll let it rest.
And then by then the whole house smells like
Dude,
fire.
I'm telling you, I kid you not, man. It's I wonder sometimes if it's like 110 watts sometimes because those Marshalls were made so inconsistently back then.
Right, exactly. You never know, right?
And it's loud as shit. It's so
Is
loud.
that a 70? Is that a 71?
71 Super Lead.
Yeah.
It's fucking
Wow.
loud. I got to put a master on it.
Yeah.
You know, and it's funny because you know these old dance people are like don't mod it, don't mod. I'm like, dude, you have to because they're just too loud. I don't want the cops. The cops hate coming here. I hate talking to them.
Yeah.
You know, you playing again? That's what they say. You playing again?
Yep.
Back in the 70s, nobody bitched.
Jimmy Ray Hawk, is Bray still making amps? I don't know. I think they still are.
I think so. I know he's doing mods for a while.
I know the guy from Sammy Hagar's band, that guy Vic. I think he was playing a Bray.
They make a 50 watt. It's just a motherfucker. It sounds great. There's a lot of good amps out there.
There really is a lot of good amps out there.
I mean, Friedman, obviously, Lang.
Yeah, Sir.
Yeah, I like Sir. Gosh.
Aldano still making great stuff. I mean,
Soldano's, yeah.
A lot of them are made at that same factory too. That boutique, the place where they build them all, right?
Yeah, that boutique.
Is in there? Isn't Soldano in there too?
I think so. Yeah, I think that it's in Los Angeles, but I think it's in like a real shady part of Los Angeles. Hey, somebody came in and stole our Soldanos.
Industrial part of town, probably.
Yeah.
Are the Soldanos still hand wired or not?
I tell you, they better be for that price.
They better be for that.
That shit's expensive.
The 30-watt one is like $3,000, isn't it?
Dude, 30 watt. It's not even a matchless.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think they're all hand wired.
Kemper.
Okay.
Kemper.
My Kemper's hand wired.
I was waiting for Jimmy to start chiming in. Kemper.
I'm keeping my mouth shut over here. But...
Dude, my Kemper's hand wired. It's wired to the plug.
Yeah, there you go. Exactly.
Yep.
That's probably the only wire in it. Is a plug.
Kemper.
I'm going to get one for myself at Christmas. I'm going to get one.
Oh, you love it.
Yeah.
There it is.
Yeah, I'm going to get one.
Then Andrew, prepare yourself to be drowned in profiles, man.
Your email will be drowned with profiles, Andrew.
Ask Cox. He went through it.
Yeah. Oh my God. I went to load some more of them in there the other night, and I guess I picked too many. I had to just go to sleep and leave it on all night because it was just like there must have been a couple thousand of them in there. I loaded in there, and I thought I just like picked carefully, but I was like, oh my gosh, it was just there's so many in there. I got to go through more now.
So great.
You know. It's great.
Yeah, you
good problem.
You go and watch a lot of videos on YouTube, guys, and the guys just rate them. You know, Les, and Jimmy. Yeah, you got one, Les, haven't you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All three of us are here with the Kempers, right?
I think the key for me that you guys have been saying since we've been doing this show together is that the tone is consistent.
Yeah. No, that's the first thing when I think of Kemper. Is the sound is just consistent, man. It's just consistent. Yeah.
Always sounds the same, no matter what the weather, the humidity, everything. You turn it on, it sounds the same as it did.
It's so consistent. It's so consistent that when it's not consistent, you're like, oh, come on, I got this thing, I got this button pushed. Okay, here we are. Okay. It's that, you know what your sound is, yeah.
And you know what's cool? Oh, I'm sorry.
Sorry, Les.
Oh, no.
Sorry, I interrupted you, Les.
If you plug it into the computer, you got like the rig manager, and it makes it a lot easier to edit presets and keep track of stuff, which is nice. So, it's really cool to do all that.
Oh. So I've got a question for you guys, for Jimmy and Les, because you guys have obviously got the pedals. So have you taken all the delay settings off your Kemper Van Halen settings and played your new EVH pedal through the Kemper? Has it added anything to the Kemper settings that you've got without those inbuilt delay settings, if that makes sense?
Like I said, I don't have me personally, I don't have a lot of delay on my signal. But you know, like I kind of mentioned in the show before, I had a cathedral patch that was good. It was good. But now I'm just using the pedal, really, you know. But yeah, normally I don't really run a lot of delay anyway, you know.
Jimmy,
Okay.
you need these, Jimmy. Single coils, buddy.
Yeah, man.
That's like kryptonite to Jimmy. He hates single coils. Look, Jimmy, 3 of them. Jimmy, look.
Get a strat.
Hey, Conch, you're missing a fret.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. 3 of them in a fret.
That's right, man.
No, you know, I actually plugged the 5150 in, and I just turned everything off and used the pedal. And you know, and I mean, it was cool. You got to tweak the pedal. You can't go in the wet, dry, wet mode for EVH. You got to go into more of a stereo, but you still got to adjust it. But yeah, it sounds cool. You know, just
Let me ask you guys a question. Follow up what Andrew said. When Jimmy, like when you're using it with the Kemper, are you plugging? You're going the guitar into the pedal, then into the front of the Kemper, or are you using the in the back? Like
I run everything's in the loop. Yeah,
in the loop, same as you, Les. Loop.
yeah, it's straight loop for the Kemper. Yep.
Gotcha. All right. Just curious.
Yeah.
But
So
you know what's funny? You got to watch your output. You got to watch your output setting, because if you turn up too high, you get too much modulation. So you got to kind of tweak it.
Yeah, that's the crazy thing about all these pedals. The same thing with those Eventide pedals. It's like you really gotta.
It's mix.
You got to turn the mix way down on them, or it's like it's just too much. It sounds terrible, you know.
Yeah,
Hey, Craig.
and see that's why you want to, like, even in the wet dry, you want to just kind of blend the effects in. Just they should always be, I'd say, if your dry tone's 100%, they should be 33 maybe.
Yeah, right. If even that much, I
Yeah,
think,
exactly. It depends on.
I got into 20 sometimes with the Eventide.
Well, yeah, and it depends on how big your cabs are, how loud you are. You know, it's all, and it's just so different for everybody. You know, if you're running 3 412s, I would turn the volumes on those 112s low. You know, personally, because then if they're too light, if you got too much chorus and delay, you want to hear your dry. They'll overtake your dry sound. And you might as well just run stereo.
You know what's crazy about the wet dry wet? When you're sitting right in front of it, if you're too far to the left-hand side, it's like, you know, you're hearing too much. You're not hearing that. It's crazy. Even just sitting in front of it, you're not hearing the dry enough. If you're in front of the left wet one, it's like you really got to position yourself right in the center of it.
So it's funny, if I'm over too far on the right, I'll turn the right down. I'll turn the left up so I can hear more of the live. So it's
I do the same exact thing. Yeah, I do the same exact thing.
It's weird.
Yeah.
But if I'm center, then they're usually pretty equal. But you know, it's never a perfect.
No,
it's not like you're going to sit there and just, you know, it's
depending where you're sitting, you got to raise one or the other up. Craig Stoff goes in the chat.
I wanted to do a shout out to our buddy Craig.
He's got a monster.
Craig, you got to come on this show, man. You got to tell us. You got to tell us the history and all that. I mean, the guy is. I call him the maestro, and he does amazing work. So
yeah, get all your photos together, Craig. That one you sent me today, that it was like a glass. It looked like that headstock. It was amazing.
Yep, got a permanent invitation on here, Craig, to come and join us.
We'll talk to you after, Craig. We'll set this up definitely.
Mm-hmm.
And Craig sits dead center, so he doesn't have to adjust his left and right cabinets.
And it's like, yeah.
Not
Craig,
there
Craig
goes.
Craig loves the whatchamacallit. What's the little one that he's got, Craig? What's the little the one that you set up that it was so cool where you had the delay settings and you were playing like Van Halen 1 stuff, and it was amazing. It was like that ducking kind of thing where you don't hear the delay when you're playing. It was the same kind of thing.
Oh, he's probably talking about his Lexicon MPX1.
One space.
I think he means
no.
The head rush. You talking about the head rush?
The head rush. It's the head rush. I always forget the name of it. The head rush. Yeah, I mean, Craig's got some amazing patches for that head rush thing. That one that I'm talking about right there. We were talking about ducking before, and it's got like ducking. He set it up somehow and it's incredible because as you're playing, it just fills it out. You don't hear that delay until you stop, and then you hear the delay. It's crazy.
Okay.
But anyway, he can talk more about that when he comes on here. He can sing its praises. It does sound pretty amazing.
Yeah.
The maestro.
There he is. Exactly.
Mm.
That's VH1 rig. He's got a Van Halen 1 rig. And we're talking about the Kemper. I imagine the Top Jimmy, the new profiles. It's got to be coming out with those soon. He took a 68 Plexi with the Variac, and he went into the studio and he made all new profiles. And now we're just waiting. That was about 4 or 5 months ago maybe 4 months ago that he put the YouTube video of him up there. If you get a chance, go check it out. You'll see him just playing, in the room with the Plexi and the Variac.
They're not released yet.
No, they're not. I didn't see them on there. I mean, I asked on the.
Trust me, we would. If they were released, we would have them.
Yeah,
that's the way it goes.
Andrew, that's your Christmas present.
Yeah. I'm saving my pennies because that's 5K here. That's 5K here, bro.
That's a lot. That's a lot.
Yeah.
There's no other way to do it. There's no other way you can send them over there. They go through everything like that. I mean, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
That's crazy. Yeah.
Because over here, it's like these down in the southern part of the United States, all these churches, they have like these like mega churches, and they have like full bands with PAs, and I mean, it's like a concert. That you go to church, it's like a concert, I guess. But they have a website. That's where I got mine. It's like usechurchequipment.com or something like that.
Holy
and
shit.
it was like the Kemper was brand new. It still had the plastic like stickers on the little windows in the front. Yeah. And it had like some of the presets, I guess, that the guy in church would use on there. It was like a blackface or something like that he was using in there. That was like the only thing that was in it, but it was like literally brand new for like $1,200. I'm like, man, this is great.
I saw this one guy. He had like, I guess they call them like worship church rigs. I don't play at churches, but this dude had 17 pedals on his rig. He had a switcher, a big switcher.
I'm like, getting this around, man. It's like
I'm like, is there any Strymon pedal you don't have?
Yeah.
He had a flange. I'm like, what? You use flange in this?
It's like the righteous gemstones that show.
Yeah. Are you playing Unchained? Mm-hmm. And I'm like, what the hell, man? It's just, I mean, it was cool, but I was like, well, that's a lot of pedals for a church rig. Figured it'd be like,
it's serious stuff.
Grabbing X-Effects.
Joel Osteen bought the whole arena in Houston. He did a 20,000 seat like arena he bought in.
Dude,
Houston.
that's a perfect place to do wet, dry, wet.
Yeah, exactly.
That's funny. I'm like, it's just crazy. I'm like, you're not playing on. I mean, I get it, you're playing, but you're at church. I mean, I
know.
Yes, I mean, do you need? I guess maybe you do.
Yeah, maybe. But anyway, I hope that those profiles are out soon. I don't know. I wonder if I leave another message on there to see if he responds.
Yeah.
Did you try those ones that I sent you from the guy? What's from Japan?
I think I loaded them in there. That's like of the 1,000 that I put in there the other night.
Dude, they're really good because he got remember Jim? He got a Plexi. I mean, he had like 10 mics mic'd up to it. He had an old Marshall 60s cab or whatever. Just cranked the hell out of it. It sounded good.
Really?
It's a nice Marshall too, stock. Just cranked the holy hell.
Yeah. I want to find out about that because I'm interested because they sounded great when he was playing them in that YouTube video. The Top Jimmy.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm looking forward to hearing those. The ones he has now, like Haas used those for when he did the Van Halen 1 thing. Haas used the Top Jimmy profiles there. So I mean, these are probably even better than their first ones there. Those are great, man. They really are. Yeah.
Yeah, those are tied. Those are like that Michael Britt and some others are like my favorite.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You got it, Craig. More than welcome.
If Craig comes down, I'm coming too, man. Craig, I'll come
Craig's saying that he's off in 2 weeks. He's going to come down and wreck your rig.
as long as he doesn't wreck his bathroom.
Had to air tag on my Marshalls.
No kidding. Yep.
John, do you remember when I brought my Friedman at the con that one year and we just cranked the shit out of it?
Yes.
When everybody left and we just cranked it to like.
It sounded amazing. Yeah, a couple people I know were complaining. I remember. I know Dave Nesdall didn't like it being too loud, and I was like, "Turn it up, turn it up."
Yeah, dude, it sounded good. Crank, man. I mean,
oh man,
that's a lot of stuff ever cranked it. It just had a, it just sounded great.
I remember that Craig was there, and I kept saying, "Craig, turn it up," and he's like kept turning it up. He likes it loud too, so he's like, "Yeah, turn it up."
Mm-hmm.
But I think some people didn't like it that loud. But
yeah, it was hopping, man. It was hopping through that Freeman cab, really nice.
That was Craig's rig too that he had there too, which sounded great. The wet dry
yeah,
wet.
Craig's rig was
EVH con. Yeah, that sounded amazing. Yeah,
good times.
I would love to bring that Sir down there and just crank the shit out of it, man. It sounds like an old Marshall, man, and it's hand wired, so it's not noisy when you crank it. It's hand wired. It's great.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you get some good stuff there, Les.
Thanks, man. That's what I'm so.
Well, that's a good point, Jimmy Ray. I'm going to do a bit of some channel stuff here, but Jimmy Ray's saying if anybody wants to help get subscribers for the channel that wants to donate some gear that people can maybe win on behalf of the channel from the continental United States. Who the hell are we to say no to anybody that might want to do that?
Mm-hmm.
There you go.
Drop me a line. If you guys are in the States, drop Jimmy a line. Drop John a line. Les a line. We're all in touch.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
That would be awesome.
Maybe not less, but the other three.
Yeah. I ain't got no money.
You didn't buy all those pedals, you would.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're going to hang around for about another 5 minutes, guys. What do you reckon?
No, it was a great show. It was a great show.
Cool.
Chris and all that information. I mean, like I said, I love my pedal. It works. Oh yeah, here we go. Conks.
What's down there?
Down the rabbit hole again, fellas.
Yeah. What a maniac.
Have we got the horn shape correct now, have we?
It's better. It's close.
Yeah.
Close. I got here's I did the overlay over it, like a life-size overlay that Jerry Leica sent me, and it looks pretty good right on the body there. I don't know if you can see it.
Oh wow,
dude,
it's pretty close.
Oh wow,
that's the life-size like overlay, so you can measure the stripes, the half inch or really a half inch on this. So this is the exact size. So it's it should look pretty good with the paint. So I made Jerry sent me this stuff, and I made like a see that? Look at that. See?
Yeah, that's nice.
Look at that.
A template, so I can lay that template over it, and
it's
just
head template.
It's head template when I'm lining up the stripes, and then this is it. I'm not doing this ever again, man. Ever. And I got a picture here. Let's see of the. I just happened to reach under like the bed, and there was like a guitar case under it, and on top of it, I grabbed it, and I pulled out a lock body that I had for my old 5150, and I looked at the horns, and I was like, no, this needs to be fixed. And then I started sanding it, and then here we are, back down the rabbit hole. But here's the body. It looks pretty good.
It looks great.
Wow.
Yeah, I flattened out the bottom more to make it look like the Pacer Special. See, the bottom is nice and flat, and the horn curving in a little bit, the bigger horn like the real one does. I mean, it looks pretty good. There's the before, like a before and after you could see.
Yeah.
Wow.
See, the bottom is flatter now.
Yeah.
The horn.
You can totally tell. Yeah.
More of a contour.
Better the horn is, and even the right horn is not as like wonky looking. It looks better.
Wow.
So,
Now make sure you get that body wood type correct.
Yeah, I forget it, dude.
Okay,
You
so
get
is
the
it
wood
swamp or
correct.
bass?
We're not going anywhere near that.
I know. Oh my god.
Exactly.
I don't want to
Forget
hear
it.
anything about grain.
Forget it. It doesn't matter anyway. All that matters is
Yeah, dude, it's your guitar.
up in the amp. It doesn't matter. It's all
Yeah.
nonsense, right?
The horn's off by 1 mil.
Yeah, I know.
I'm surprised Craig's using millimeters.
Yeah, dude.
Exactly. Yeah, he's being respectful to you, Andrew. That's it.
Thank you. Thank you.
funny,
Yeah.
Yeah, I know.
Because 1 mil is fuck all.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, if you know Craig, he's all about the metric system, man.
Yeah,
Yeah,
he is.
dude. You know?
At home, that's great. Everything's in like liters and everything like that. When Craig
Yeah.
drinks
Yeah.
Fireball,
Yeah.
it's a liter of Fireball that he asked his wife
Yeah.
to go get.
A liter of cola.
Yeah, a liter of cola. Right? Exactly.
Oh,
Yes,
my Lord.
Rabbit hole is right, Craig.
Or
The rabbit hole is right. But yeah, I'm finishing this, and I'll never do another one of these again. That's it. You know.
Well, keep us updated, John, with your progress, and we will share, obviously, anything that you want on some posts here on the channel with your guitar. And Jimmy, when Craig comes down to destroy any of your guys' rigs, send some video through. Put some video footage up so we can see
Craig
the
is a great
destruction.
player, man. Craig's a great
here's
player.
my guitar I'm working on. I'll get this done soon. The kid did Music Craft body, Alder. Kid did it for me. Did a contour on or sculpted neck heel, as you can see. And I'm going to put a Floyd humbuckers, 2 single coils. Going to have a volume, a kill switch, and a master tone. Probably I might even recess it, and we'll depend.
No.
No, we'll see. We'll see.
No.
What neck are you going to use on it?
I got a Music Craft maple neck.
Oh, okay, nice.
Yeah,
Beautiful.
with a Floyd. Got a 1980 or got a original Floyd on there, so it should be good.
And remember, wood screws.
I'm
Wood
using wood
screws.
screws. I got wood screws with it. Yep. I haven't used wood screws in years, but because you can't get them anymore. But I mean, you can, but I just never. I usually get my trims used or whatever, so I'll be excited to use those.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the first Floyds I used were wood screws.
That's it.
Yeah.
I remember just getting to Phillips and lowering that action.
Great,
Yep.
man. The wood screws. I'm all
Okay,
about ask Conks. I'm all about the wood screws.
I'm with you. Except when I did that last 5150, I plugged it up, and Craig he sprayed it for me. He sprayed the white part on for me, and when I plugged it up, I really didn't mark where they were. I doweled and plugged it. So right before he went to paint it, I just took I think I put a little dent in the wood, but it wasn't really centered. So when I re-drilled them, I think the intonation is slightly off on my 5150 because of that, because I kind of rushed it.
Oh, interesting.
Craig says wood screw for men. That's right.
Yeah, man.
That's right.
Right. Sometimes I go on eBay and just see what's on there for replicas and stuff. And if the replica doesn't have wood screws,
You don't even want to. Right. And I bet you those things bother you on the neck too. That little wheel at the bottom of there, right? You hate that.
I love the wheel for anything but EVH stuff.
Yeah, I know, right?
It's not really legit, but the wheel is fantastic. That's a great idea,
Right. Just
Great invention. Great invention.
Yeah.
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 It is.
I've had this for 14 years, and I have never adjusted the neck on it once.
Really?
Yeah, not once. I think one time I started to, and then a friend of mine checked. He goes, "Nah, it's you shouldn't have straightened it. You need to." I have a tad bit of relief. It's pretty flat, but he goes, "You don't need to." So, but I have graphite rods in the neck, which is great. So it's never moved.
There's 2 of them, right? There's 2 in there, right? 2 graphite rods.
Yeah, 2 graphite. I think
Yeah.
they run parallel, obviously, real thin. But
Les, hold up the grain closer so we can see it real quick.
Beautiful.
Now, what year is that, Les?
2009 for sure.
So that's an early one, and they made
Yeah,
the,
it's number 255 or something.
Yeah, that's
Wow.
beautiful.
Yeah, thanks. The only thing I did was put original Floyd on it, and I put a washer underneath here, so it's a lot stiffer because it was jumping around like that.
Yeah.
I don't know why they would ever put a speed knob for a tone. It's
I know. Nuts,
stupid.
bro.
Yeah, right.
And then I've got
It's nuts.
I've got a stainless steel block.
I think they stopped with the speed knob for the tones, though. I think I have on my.
I put a washer under mine, and it worked out great. My tech up in Boston guy did it. I don't have a tech, but a guy.
On my USA Stealth, the USA Stealth, I think it's not a speed knob on the tone.
Yeah, it's just a lot. It's like a normal Stratus stiffer. I mean, you can change it. Yeah, because I'd be playing, and and I'm like, my tone sucks. I'm like going to my amp, and I'm like, oh, my tubes are dying. Oh, my amp's fucking up. And then I look, my tone knob's all the way back, and I'm like, that's it. Then I'm like, I got to fix this, and then I put a washer under it, and it took like 5 minutes to do that, and never had a problem since.
Yeah, good point, Les. I did the same thing with my 5150. I took it to my guitar tech, and he just changed the pot to a normal pot because you don't need much for that bloody frictionless pot to move.
You can put a round tiny wood washer underneath and put it down. It won't move. Okay. It'll just stiffen it up. You can actually tighten those up a little bit. There's a few different ways to do it. But yeah, I don't know why they put a born speed knob on it for the tone. It's kind of funny. But I mean, I guess that was the first few years or something. But yeah, this guitar I played the hell out of it, man.
Because by 2011, that's when the Stealth I have is an 11, and that it doesn't have the speed for the tone. So somebody already got to them and said, "What are you doing?" Yeah,
and where the volume placement is on it. I'm so used to that when I got my Sir, I wanted that volume placement exactly like the Wolfgang.
Did you tell them that?
When I put the volume on the Strat, it's going to be exactly where the Wolfgang would be.
Yeah,
because I'm just so used to it there. I've played that guitar for 14 years. I got it 2 weeks before my daughter was born, and I just played the shit out of it. It's been great. I've cleaned
favorite guitar
a few times.
That's what's
weird. Your favorite guitar, Les?
I'm sorry, what?
Is it your favorite guitar?
Oh, yeah. My Ernie Ball Axis is my Sir, and my Les Paul, my dad's Les Paul I play sometimes. I go through phases. Been using the Strat lately, but sometimes I've been using that EVH quite a bit. It's probably the best sounding I have.
Look how close the volume knob is there under the pickup. These ones, I don't know how these Kramers back. We all were used to them in the 80s like that, but
that's where I would have mine.
It's very close. So look how close that is.
Yeah.
That's the way it was.
That's John. That's just like on your Stealth.
Yeah,
pretty much.
Actually, I think the Stealth is a little farther away than that. That's really, really tight.
See, like where if you notice like a Charvel or a Jackson, the volume knob is directly right below the humbucker, like right in the middle of those two single coils. That's just too far down. I like it at more of a closer angle. I mean, it's all preference, but
it is. But you know what? Everybody gets used to it wherever it is. Anyway, you know what I mean? It's like,
I mean, if you play a Stratus right there for roll-offs,
we all adjust.
Yeah,
awesome.
When the Maestro made my Red Sparkle Jack Butler thing, one of the concerns was, because I love the Born's Ponce, like the low friction, but we talked about where we were going to place the volume knob, so I kind of had him place it just a little bit further away, and it's perfect. It doesn't bother me, and I never, my finger never brushes up against it to lower it.
As long as I do a dive bomb with a Floyd and I don't hit the volume, I'm good. But Jimmy, have you ever weighed that guitar? That guitar's got to be 14 pounds.
Yeah, man, I love it. Hang on 1 second. Hold on, I got my dog's acting weird.
No problem. Craig's going to build a scalloped 5150, guys. That's going to be an interesting guitar.
He's probably pissing 5150 on it all over the floor.
Yeah, his Craig loves the Yngwie Malmsteen pots that he uses, the YJM ones. Craig, why do you love them so much in 50-cent words or less? 12 pounds.
Yeah, that's my guitar. 12 pounds of clear coat.
I bet. Yeah, Craig,
And
you got
that red guitar is heavy as hell.
Craig, you got to put together a book of all your photos when you come on here, and you got to send them all to Andrew so we could pull them up there on like your really good ones.
Yeah.
And mine better be in there.
Yeah, exactly. The gold top. No issue.
No issues.
What issues did you have with the Van Halen ones?
Good point.
I never had an issue with the EVH.
No, I didn't either, but I know Craig something 12,000 photos. Yeah, okay. Pick the best 50, 25.
The best 1,000.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I remember Craig saying there was a reason he didn't care for like the EVH ones as much. But
I forgot Mounting had a signature pinchiometer, whatever volume. I wonder, is it faster or is it?
I don't know.
I wonder if it cleans up, if it's got like a treble bleed.
I think, Craig, you put that on one of my guitars, I think, right? Scratchy, burned many up, too many complaints. There you go.
Okay.
I actually think they EVH changed them, didn't they? Don't they have a better one now?
Really?
I thought they changed it to an even different one when Ed was using that ivory one in 2015. I thought that was a different one. I may be wrong, but I thought they. Wow. I don't know if they sell it or not, but I thought there was another one. Somebody in the chat might know.
Maybe they might have upgraded it. Yeah.
Where's Randy Price? Is he in the chat? He would know. I'll find out.
So they roll off better.
There you go.
Yep.
Huh.
I think Craig's just an Yngwie fan.
Yeah,
about that.
Just don't give him any donuts.
So we're gonna be talking Nuno next time up. Extreme.
Oh yes. Fantastic, guys. Yeah. So we're going to wind up the show. We've been live for 2.5 hours. We've had a great time, obviously, with Chris and hanging out with Conks coming on. But yes, so we're going to be back with Brad, John, Jimmy, and I, and we're going to be going through ranking the tracks on Extreme 6. Can't wait, fellas.
I can't wait either. I'll have my N4 with me as a surprise that night. I'll pull it out from under the bed.
That's it.
And the four of us will be back for part 2 with Chris for the part 2 of the EVH pedal. And by then, John, you'll be able to contribute with your impressions because you'll have your pedal.
Yeah,
you'll be able to play Flight of the Bumblebee with the right delay time on it for us.
There you go. Like,
fast ass delay.
217 milliseconds or something. I forget what it is.
Man.
Yeah, and anybody's got any questions like about the pedal and stuff? You know, let's get all these questions together either on the Facebook page or in here, and or send them to any of us. You know, and and we'll bring them up with Chris and we'll talk about them.
Yeah, because that's what it's about. You know, it's sharing the experience. None of us here are experts. You know, a lot of us have got the gear because we're fans, and it's always, Liz, it's been a lifelong thing of searching and chasing that tone. It's what we love, it's what we do, and it's about sharing those experiences. That's what I love about it.
And if I can listen to Chris and not have to read a manual, that's even better.
Oh, yes.
Shut up.
We're not going to go through and name everybody in the chat. We're just going to say, you know, thank you guys for hanging out with us and being part of what we do here on the channel. Please hit that subscribe button. I've subscribed to a couple of people already in the chat. We're about subscribing back. We do want to grow our channel here. If you want to go on our channel's page. If you've got a project that you want to work on, we're here to help you guys as well. So reach out to us and we'll promote anything that you're doing. That's no problem. Happy to share those links. John, because you were the last guy on, I'm going to give you the last word, brother.
All right. Well, I think there's another great show tonight. Important, good stuff to talk about, and let's continue it. And also, don't forget, next time, Extreme 6. Can't wait for that one. I've been listening to it over and over, that album, every song. going through it all, driving my wife crazy. She actually likes extreme, so she's got a few favorites on there already. So and a few interesting things I've picked up on there, and we'll talk about those next week.
Is she extremely grateful?
She's extremely grateful. Yeah, she really is.
Okay.
All right. Thanks, guys, for hanging out with us. It's been a pleasure. We always appreciate your support. None of you guys don't go anywhere. We'll play the final vid and we'll have a bit of a debrief. Okay, don't go anywhere. All right.
Thank you,
See you
everybody.
guys later. Bye.
Right.
God bless.
Yes.